All right, welcome everybody to the April 5th, 2023 Select Board meeting. It is 6:02, and I'd like to open the floor for public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion, not action.
Hi, Michael McKee, 107 Cottage Road. This is my wife, Katie. We came to you at the last meeting and we said that we had an upcoming Board of Appeals hearing and we were concerned about the bias, the chairman that was going to be presiding over it. I know at least some of you were at that meeting. The meeting was held and I think the bias was quite clear. Sam McLean called me on March 3rd to tell me that there was going to be a meeting. The town of Chebeague Island cashed our $250 fee to have an admin appeal. An agenda was published and posted on the boat, the store, all the normal places. But the night of the meeting, Sam McLean personally decided not to have one, ignoring the opinion of the town attorney, our attorney, the two other members of the board, and ignoring the concrete examples that we used of a misunderstanding of fact. So we were here, we said it was going to happen, it happened, and we're here notifying. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you. Any comments? All right, any other topics? All right. Moving on to town reports. Hand it off to Vika.
So the town report, TA report, there's a few things worth mentioning. So just a brief thing with Bennett's Cove, there was a survey done and last meeting there was a question raised whether the paper streets that were adopted at the 2017 meeting were reflected on the survey, and I did contact the company and they said that it was reflected. I did also ask them if any iron markers were set, because that was another question that was raised. They said that that was not part of their work, but for an additional fee, they can set them. I told them not to worry about it at this point. And then in reference to contacting the owner of the boat that's down there, the harbor master has been in contact. I had emailed the harbor master the day after the last meeting and told me to let me know something within 2 weeks. And then he let me know and spoke to the owner of the boat, and the owner said that that it was going to be taken care of, that nothing came of it and no plan was made. And so the last conversation I had with the harbor master, I said to let them know that they have a month to figure out a plan, and if they don't have one, then the town will make the accommodations to remove the boat and charge the owners. And so the owners since then have been notified by mail of that happening. And then the last meeting, it was agreed upon that once we get through the budget process, then we'll start the discussion back up about the Bennett's Cove Road and what to do down there. Any questions about that before I move on?
No.
Dredging. I received a call the day that I was putting this together unexpectedly from Jordan Macy, who's now the lead on the project. And he shared some information with me about cost estimates of the remaining 11%. I was really struggling to understand what he was sharing with me. It was kind of an unplanned, unexpected phone conversation. So we agreed to schedule a meeting for Thursday, April 13th to discuss the cost estimates for the remainder of the project. So if there's a board member or two that want to participate, it's going to be a Zoom meeting. That's where we really should have an idea of what the numbers should be. The numbers at this point, until they have a bidder, are not going to be public information because they don't want potential applicants to gain, some information about the numbers that they're working with. But it's definitely, it should give us an idea of where we stand with the budget and whether we would need to put any more in the budget. So is there anybody that wants to join in on that meeting?
What time?
So it's gonna be, let me. 10 a.m.
At the town office in your
You
office?
could, yeah, you can come to the town office, or I can send you the link and you can join
Okay.
through the link, so whatever's
And-
easier.
And they will have a rough idea for us to hear for a number. at least?
Correct, yes,
Yeah, I'll try to make it. Maybe you can give me a text reminder.
yes.
Got a
I
lot
can do
going
that,
on.
yep.
Thank you.
Jen?
I was asking because I'm gonna be off island most of the day. If it was on the later side, I could do it, but not that time.
Anything else?
Well, I would say
Keep going.
if we can't get a second person there, if Carol can't do it and Bo can't do it, then I would try to fit it in. That's theoretically the week I'm moving. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be a little busy, but, if you don't have a second board, I really need that.
If you have a second one, let me know and I can try. I just don't, I can't tell you where I'm gonna be.
I don't think, I mean, honestly, I don't, he's just gonna be sharing the information and then he is gonna have a PowerPoint, so I don't know if it's really necessary for him to have a second member there. I've had a few conversations with them without any selectmen. Last time Mark happened to be in the office when that was taking place, and he said in, at this point, I am eager to get this conversation over with so we can properly budget, so I'd rather not try to push it, but, yeah, I mean,
Would he be willing to share the PowerPoint after he delivers it, or is that gonna fall into?
I'd be able to share it, I think if any, after that meeting, I would recommend that we hold an executive session, so then all the selectmen could be, updated on the details of that, so then we can properly budget if need be for going forward, so.
Well, don't we have a meeting that evening.
So we can, yeah, we could schedule, put an executive session if it, isn't it 14th or the following, the 13th? Oh, so that would be good. Okay. All right, the next thing is, let me write. The next thing is the floats. I had spoke with Public Works about the floats getting back in the water, and we agreed that they are going to be in the water by the end of next week. There is some annual service that was required on the float trailer and the truck. Some parts had to be ordered, and then the routine maintenance would begin. This week, one of the Public Works crews was in the hospital, so they were a little set back with that, but then the other one did work on the floats. And so at this point, the floats need to be flipped over and then checked to make sure that no routine work needs to be done underneath it and secured. And then they will start coordinating the plans to get them in the water by the end of next week.
Yes, Mark.
Have they ordered any other materials for the floats, such as replacements for rub rails and planks? Do they have any of that stuff coming?
I don't know the exact details of what was ordered, but he did say that those, when he explained to me that, that those were some of the things that they had in mind.
Because we do have quite a few pieces missing, and there's also some pieces that need repair of the ones that are in the water.
Yep,
I'll be quick. I've been in 2 meetings lately with the Coastal Waters Committee president, along with the Shellfish Group. And I think these floats that we have are probably about 20 years old, roughly. I think Proc Marine probably built them when they did a bunch of the work down there for Cumberland. And I think at some point, a good assessment of the floats is probably gonna be a good thing by somebody like a Custom Floats type company or somebody that builds floats. And when we get to the budget session, we've got a recommendation that I'm gonna be following through with to add some more money into the floats and ramps, reserve account for preparation. We have about 27,000 in there now. I think it might be good for us to start planning a purchase and a rotation, or even purchase and putting out for bids for sale for some of the old floats, and start working towards a replacement program of some kind. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on that?
That's a good plan.
The next thing. Can't write fast. Next thing on here is, a Hope Island visit was done on November 21st. So this visit was really coordinated initially for the tax assessor and the code enforcement officer to go out there to get an idea of what the work that is happening, to make sure that they have all the appropriate information. And then Bob and Carol and myself joined. We were met by one of the architects that is working on the project, and walked the property and got information about the project and what's taking place out there. And Carol actually had a suggestion to put an agenda item for this evening's meeting to hear an update on it. So I think hopefully she's here by that time. And then if Bob and Carol have more to add to that, then that can be shared in the agenda item.
Okay.
The next thing is, I've been going back and forth with the town administrator on Long Island. And we finally agreed upon a date to meet on Thursday, April 20th at 4 p.m. was their recommendation, to do a joint Zoom meeting between the two select board members. And then if we can have three, I know last time it was discussed that hopefully we can get 3 selectmen to join, so then that way it's a meeting. And the purpose on it would be to discuss how the two islands can kind of combine forces to work on some of the tasks that they're both experiencing issues with, such as harbor master, code enforcement officer, barging costs, et cetera. So hopefully that day could work for the select board, because it was not an easy time trying to coordinate a time with them and their select board and their town administrator to try to find that. So are there 3 members or more that could make that meeting? It would be a Zoom meeting. What's that?
I can make it.
I can probably try to make it too.
I got on my calendar already.
Good. All right, so we're good to go with at least 3 members, so, and I'll forward the Board of Selectmen, he's gonna send me a Zoom invite, so I'll forward it to you guys. The next thing is, as far as the road commissioner goes, so it was discussed during my 1-year review that I will no longer be the road commissioner, and I put it on here just so then that way the public was aware of it. There is still discussions that need to take place in the future about how the board wants to conduct the business of the road commissioner. If you want to advertise for somebody else, if you want it to be a volunteer position, if you want the board to just take on that responsibility, or what your plan is. So it's just something.
So due to the amount that we have on our plate tonight, I was hoping to push that discussion till the next meeting and have some kind of solid plan for that. Mark?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think in the meantime, by default, the board is temporarily the road commissioner.
Correct.
Thank you.
Bob? Okay. All right.
The only other thing that I have on here was just more of an FYI. I'm gonna advertise for a filling parking attendant in the event that the current one is away or sick. It's a good idea to have one. It is also, this wouldn't impact the budget because it would just only be fill in on the days that the current parking attendant isn't here. It was just as an FYI for you guys. the current one is absent quite frequently this time of year during the week. When there are applicants, it would be a decision that would be made by you to hire them. So, and if there is somebody that's already, I'm hoping that we already have somebody that's a town employee that would want to come in and do it, but I haven't been able to find anybody. But either way, I just wanted that to be on your radar in case if you see that job description and want to know why it's out there.
Any questions? All right.
Treasurer's report is the next thing. I'm not gonna read this word by word. You got a copy of it, and I'm assuming you've all read it, but I'm just gonna summarize that the bank reconciliation is still 2 months behind. And I give you the numbers that, you know, one of the months is off by $800, the other one is by a couple $1,000s. Marjorie is gonna be coming out in the next 2 weeks. Next weekend, I'm gonna spend the weekend with her in the office. We have started discussions about what we could do to make this process a little bit more efficient than the way that it's been working. In the meantime, I do check the account regularly. There's, you know, nothing unusual happening with the bank. The issue is that our Trio system and what the bank statements are have to match, and with so much money going in and out, sometimes it's difficult to have it down. It can't be even off by, you know, $3. So any questions about that before I
Bob?
go through the rest of it?
Yeah, I would like to suggest that the board sit down with Marjorie while she's here and come up with a concrete plan as to how much longer this is gonna go on, what we're gonna do.
All right, if she has
She's
time.
not gonna be here on a weekday, so I don't know that she has the flexibility to sit down with the board during the week.
Not talking during the week, talking about when she's here, working with you, I'm talking about the board sitting down with her.
So if the board sits down with her, we'd have to make it a meeting.
Yeah.
So it's either the whole board or just a couple members, so.
Yeah.
Mark?
When is she coming?
The 14th.
Maybe a Zoom meeting would be more,
14th is a Friday.
She's coming on the Friday afternoon, and then we're meeting on Saturday.
Okay. So we will meet sometime on Saturday the 15th.
I think, may I?
yes.
I think there would be some value in it, just talking with her for even if it's just a few minutes, with her. No offense, but with Marjorie's level of experience, especially in the finance area, I would be interested in having her tell us where she thinks we are and how much longer we may require her services or someone similar.
Okay.
The only recommendation, if that's what you want to do, I would suggest doing it later in the day so we can get through the reconciliation, so then the conversation doesn't take up more time than us needed to do this part, so.
Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon?
Saturday afternoon. so that-
Saturday, yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry, I thought she said the
14th, which is
She's
a
coming
Friday.
on Friday, so she's traveling on Friday, and she's gonna be here on Friday, and we're getting together to work on the reconciliation on Saturday morning.
Okay. I have to go over, sorry, play
So
music
the
on
15th.
Saturday night, so
Saturday.
On Saturday, what time do you have to do?
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna have to leave on the quarter 4 boat.
Yeah, we can do it for this
Yes,
Are you gonna do it by Zoom or in person?
in person.
we're gonna be at the office, so.
yeah, I have some stuff going on that day, but I don't know exactly the times, so. I don't know.
Well, we'll see if we can make it work out and
Yes,
see what we can do.
Yeah,
all right.
So going down a little bit, with, as far as the revenue goes, not unexpected, but in the month of March, we collected more in revenue for building permits than we budgeted to collect the entire year, which a lot of that was based off of the permits that we received from Hope Island. We received over $13,000 in building permit revenues. So that just goes to show the amount of work that has taken place out here. As far as the expense, overall, the budget is in a good place. There aren't a lot of concerning areas to really keep in mind with. The only thing is, which is something you've been aware of for many months, is the legal budget. So the current summary that you have printed out did not reflect, it does not reflect the warrant that sits in front of you. So those numbers, until that's posted and approved, don't get accounted into here. But I did write down the breakdown, that once that bill is posted, that legally the town now has exceeded the legal fees. And so any bill that is received after that one, I will bring to you as an individual agenda item that then you would have to approve. And my recommendation would be that you pay, that gets paid out of Selectmen's contingency where there's still $14,000. And so at this point, we do have a couple more months of this before the new budget. And I'm hoping that we can continue doing it in this process where I just bring it to you as an agenda item. If we get a bill that is, going to creep to cutting half of the contingency or something like that, then I would recommend that we hold a special town meeting. But even with a special town meeting, that's still time and funds and things like that of taxpayers' money that gets accounted into that. So I want to try to avoid that if we can, unless we absolutely have to. And then as far as, so the capital report document, the last thing on the treasurer's report, that's something that I shared with you a couple months ago. That is something that I found that I believe was Herb Main's creation, that was used a few years back. I have spent significant amount of time trying to update it, and it has not been used or updated since 2019. So it was a couple of years worth of things to put in it. And so during the process, what I was discovering is that reserve accounts that have been created since 2019's special town meeting and annual town meeting weren't always properly categorized or put in that document. So it's kind of, as I was working on it, I was finding more additional work to fix. And so that's, I was hoping to have that 30-some page document completed for tonight's budget workshop, but I just did not get the time to be able to finish it. So I'm hoping, I think it's going to be a really good tool going forward. So I'm hoping that once it's cleaned and updated, and whether it's myself or other town administrators in the future know that it exists, that it's not going to be in a situation where we have, 3 or 4 years worth of things updating before it could be used. So any questions about that? Are there any questions about any of the other reports? Fire department, public works, code enforcement? There are in the package.
I had requested a few, like a month ago or so, about putting something in the ramps, on the side of the ramps. Something just so that, stuff.
I talked to Public Works about it and they were, I'd have to follow up with Chuck on it. They were directed to do it and he said he explained what he was gonna order. My suspicion is it's probably fell off their radar, especially with illnesses and other family matters, but I'll definitely follow up.
I know right now the floats are priority and stuff.
Yeah, I'll follow up.
And also that ramp that goes to the commercial one. If Custom Floats can give us a number.
So, Custom Float said that it would be mid-April that they would come out to. Are you talking about
Not for
Cousins
that,
Island?
no, for the ramp that goes from the CTC float to the commercial float that's damaged.
I don't have information on that one,
All right,
but I'll double check.
okay.
No,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to ask for another $1,000 in the budget just because of ladder testing. We're supposed to do it every year and we couldn't get anybody to come out during COVID and we're all about it and we gotta do it. It's mandatory. And we have to pay for housing for the mechanic that comes over and works on the trucks and does all the maintenance. And it's only gonna cost us $100. Somebody offered up.
all right.
3 nights or 4 nights a week.
So that's not on your report though, right?
No,
Okay.
that just came up yesterday afternoon. I realized it.
All right. And that's for the following year, or is that something that you can use out of this year's budget?
That will be just everybody, but yeah, this the new one.
Okay. Bob?
Can't they stay in the space in between the public safety building and town hall? Isn't there still a bunk room in there?
I don't know.
There's no bunk room. And actually, this is where it all came to light as far as housing. Back when Marjorie was the town administrator, we had a walkthrough with the inspector from our insurance company, well, the insurer. And there's by law not supposed to be anybody sleeping in the town garage or the public safety building. I don't care, the mechanic is quite happy to sleep on a cot in the town garage. And I'm fine with that, but that's completely up to you guys. But we were advised by the insurer, nobody was supposed to be sleeping there.
Does that mean, if I can ask, does that mean without additional cost, or does that mean it can never happen, or?
Never, there's no living quarters.
Okay.
Yeah,
I believe it's because there's no separation for or ventilation for exhaust.
Yeah. So nobody sleeps there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Right, any other questions?
Would you permit a couple of quick questions on the one from the harbor master? So I've been to a couple of meetings with the harbor Coastal Waters Commission and the Shellfish Group. And on the bottom of the memo from Gennaro, the harbor master, it says moorings. The plans to send out applications first week of April. I know Justin Doty was probably late with his email this afternoon, but there's been a recommendation from the Coastal Waters Commission to change the mooring fees from $25 to $50.
To my knowledge, last time I had a conversation with Gennaro, he was waiting until that particular meeting with Coastal Waters to see what their recommendations might be before he sent out the mooring applications. And in speaking to him, I had a similar suggestion, and so he said he was going to wait. And so since that meeting, I have not touched base with him.
Yeah, so I was at the meeting.
Yep.
And Alex Todd made the motion, Sherman Rich seconded the motion, and they voted unanimously to change the mooring fees from $25 to $50. My question is, this says we're sending out mooring applications, so
They usually go out at the first week in April, that's correct, and he planned on doing that, and then he was gonna hold off until the Coastal Waters meeting. So I don't believe they've been sent out yet.
so Justin has just sent us an email late this afternoon.
Yes,
So it's in that email.
yes.
So I'm just
And-
pointing that out. to
Yeah,
everyone.
and the moorings aren't due, the mooring payments aren't due until July 1st.
Yeah,
So there is the flexibility to wait a little bit longer if that is the decision that the selectmen wish.
okay,
It would need to be an agenda item for for fee structure change for selectmen to properly adopt those fee changes. So that's
Yeah.
something that could be done, and then the warrants could be sent out at the beginning of May if that's the
Right.
direction that you want to go.
Do we
in.
need to have a public workshop for that?
No,
I
Or
think,
just
I think,
just
I think her
actual public
point
meeting?
is well taken. We probably should have it on an agenda.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
case someone
yeah,
wants to
because
come
the
and
process
speak to
is
it.
the coastal waters can give you the recommendation, but you're the board that approves fees.
Mhm.
And so an agenda item at like the next board meeting for you to discuss and make any changes for mooring fees
Yeah,
would then allow for those fees to be changed and then appropriately sent out.
and then one more thing very quickly. The second item on that list says Chandler's. There has been a boat that's been using the float as a personal berth. A letter was sent to this individual, no response. Local warden has been notified. Since then, the individual has moved the boat, and Central Maine Power spoke to me and wanted me to pass on that they appreciated that the individual was moved, because CMP likes to berth up in, so they're not only out of people's way, but their bow is better pointing towards the wharf than having somebody right on their bow. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Jen?
So, just to clarify, Justin sent it out at 6:08 AM this morning, his letter. So we will have a notice on our next meeting to go over the fees.
If you want to talk about making the adjustments for this year's, then yeah, that would be the appropriate way of
Okay.
handling that, to have an agenda item, to have the additional list of discussions that we have included in that.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on any of the reports? Is there anything else, Vika?
No, I just have a quick question for Ralph, though. Are you gonna stay for the budget discussion or not? Because if so, I would like a little bit more clarification about how much money and what, so then we can properly adjust it in here.
Yeah, what do you need to know?
So you said you want an additional $1,000 for maintenance?
Yeah,
Is that annually, or is that just for this
Yeah, no.
year?
that, it would fall under maintenance, just as the line of testing.
And that would be an additional $1,000 to the maintenance budget annually?
Yep.
Okay,
And the $100, would that be annually or is
Between
that just?
$100 for that, it comes out to, I think, $960 or $980, so I round up to 1,000.
Oh, okay, so that's including the room
Yeah.
board, whatever. Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions, Vika?
no, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that in case he didn't want to stay until.
We'll see if I can stay awake that long.
That's what I wanted to ask.
All right, any other questions for Vika? All right, moving on to regular business, 23-023 to discuss harbor master / shellfish warden job position and take any necessary action. So, as Mark pointed out, we got the information at 6 AM this morning. When I didn't get to read it till I briefly went right through it, so we're gonna discuss this right now. We kind of have to, because this potentially have an impact on our budget. Yes, Mark?
So is the purpose of this business item to talk about the adjustment to the job description and the job duties? And or money, or what's the purpose in our opinion of this business item?
At least agree with the job description. I'm willing to go whichever way the board wants to. If they want to discuss payment, then we'll discuss payment. But as far as I know, we're just talking about the job description from the harbor master. And
Yeah,
I would suggest that we ask Coastal Waters to write this up We have a similar write-up relative to the shellfish warden. Both of them have hours attached to them. So I would suggest that we adopt these, that we have a vote on adopting these. And if we do adopt them, then those hours times whatever rate we decide on can be part of the budget discussion to finish up that item, that line item on the budget. Then at a subsequent meeting, we can talk about how we go about implementing when we post, when the job changes. I would assume it doesn't change until the new budget year, that kind of thing.
Everybody in agreement?
Did you have a question?
I do. I agree with what Bob is saying. The one thing that I think is still questionable to me is, in terms of the hours, because the amount of hours worked is going to impact what we put into the budget, so, but I think that they did a great job with this.
And I did have, I think, had a conversation with Justin. They were fine with the hours that are in there. I think that's the basis of our budget.
Okay.
So I would make a motion that we adopt those two job descriptions as written, and that at a subsequent meeting, we talk about an implementation plan, but that we use those hours as the basis for our budget for those two lines. Later on tonight.
There's a second?
I don't know yet. I'll second it for discussion. How's that?
Yeah.
Can I discuss?
Yes.
So are the hours in there? So I guess my question is, what would be so difficult about calculating it? Because
There's nothing.
I'm concerned about trying to finish up the budget and get it close enough. Next week, we've got a combination meeting with the school, and I'm gonna keep that meeting very simple. I'm gonna keep it very presentation by the school, where they are, bottom line expectations, presentation by the town, bottom line, where we think we're gonna end up. I'm not sure we're gonna get close enough to guess at what that's gonna do to our mill rate, but I think we can have my point is, we're gonna start running out of time to finalize this budget, so I guess one more meeting would be fine. That's my point. That's my question.
No, I was suggesting that we say, we vote tonight to adopt this. Adopt them as they're written and use those hours to do the budget tonight.
When you say the hours are in here, where are they? Because the two
Why would I say that? They got
job
to-
descriptions, and this is where I have the question. The job description says variable seasonal hours as determined by town administrator for shellfish. And then harbor master, variable seasonal hours, see below, and then it says part-time position primarily during the summer months hours, Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah.
Working under direction of the TA. So there isn't specifics, but if it's similar
Sorry.
to.
If I can interrupt, there were specifics as of 2 days ago. There were- they got taken out.
Okay.
Sorry. My bad. There were specific.
That's where I still have the question, because I think that not having the hours.
Well, that's why
impacts.
that's kind of why
Currently we have $6,000
I would
in
draw
the
my
current
motion.
budget.
I was basing this on the version I saw from 2 days ago. It, in 24 hours, dropped that section out.
So could I follow up really quickly? So this motion that you've made right now is basically just for job description and expected duties, correct?
No, it was based on the hours.
So you'd have to amend the motion, then I would think, for now, if you're gonna make a motion on this item, right?
Yeah, I'm withdrawing the motion.
Okay,
Because it was based on getting us to the point we need to be in the budget. Maybe we can get to where we need to be in the budget anyway.
yeah, that's kind of where my point was going, was almost more budget.
Well, maybe
related.
you could suggest what they had for
I will.
hours in the budget when we do the budget discussion, and we can at least adjust the numbers.
That's what
If
we'll
they
do.
need to be adjusted for the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah,
Because
Maybe
this
we-
could be adopted at any point. This isn't
Correct.
really pending on.
Then maybe we can ask Justin too as a follow-up tomorrow
Yeah.
to see if those hours were just a suggestion or was that something to shoot for?
Yeah.
So, Mark,
So are you suggesting tabling this for now and trying to finalize it at the next meeting as far as job description, job duties, and possibly pay, which may or may not be finalized tonight?
I think the pay hopefully could be discussed tonight and have a better adjustment if there is one. I think with this, I think they've done a really great job with the job description. But like I mentioned, my reservation is, if you were to adopt this today, expected work hours, variable seasonal hours as determined by TA, that's being thrown at me. And, I don't know. So I think that should be in there before these job descriptions get
Yeah.
really adopted. That's my only question.
I'll be very quick. I'm fine either way. Like I said, I was at the last meeting. They did do a good job simplifying.
Yeah, they did
the-
a great job
The
with this.
job description, which was a little complicated because we carried a lot of it over from Cumberland when we inherited the situation. And they did a good job with the duties, which is very simple. So I can go either way.
So-
I think maybe we just table it if we're not prepared to finalize
so
it. and
my
then-
question to Bob is, do you have like the proposed, or what they were talking about as far as for hours?
Yes.
So we have something we can work with during the budget and shoot for those hours and maybe adjust the budget that way.
Yeah.
And table the description till the next meeting.
Yep.
Or whenever possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody on board with that? Okay. All right, next item, 23-024, to review pole attachment agreement between Central Maine Power and Shebig Island and take any necessary action.
We did not get it back in time, so Kathy spent some time helping me trying to combine the two. And then that just led to me going directly to CMP and communicating with the individual from CMP. I sent the document that our attorney had looked at to them, and he went through that document rather than commenting on it and made the comments, and then I sent it back to the town attorney to approve to make sure that those comments were in line with what was the benefit for the town. That was done at the beginning of last week, and I have not received it back yet, so table it for the
All right.
next agenda.
So I got a question for Michael. How does that hurt our project?
It's a problem. All these delays, I mean, it's been, what, 6 weeks now?
Yeah.
Of this agreement. We got CCI to go too. And what's gonna happen is, we're kind of ahead of the game because we got an early grant. But there weren't very many of those initial connectivity grants.
Mhm.
But now there's a lot of connectivity grants for this new pile of money that's coming into the state. The ARPA money and BEAD coming up. What I'm afraid of happening is that when we finally get it all approved and get what's called status with the company, with the poll holders, then we're going to be, we'll finally go around and say, all right, actually, now we're all ready. They'll say, well, I'm sorry. We can't, there's only so many contractors that can build it, so many constructors working for them. Well, we can't get to you for a year and a half. That's, I mean, I really don't want to give up the lead that we have.
Mhm.
I mean, so it's, for that reason, it's urgent.
All right.
And there is theoretically a deadline on the grant too. I mean, we're supposed to have completed it within, I think it's 18 months. They already know it's gonna be late because of the problem with the credit, but it's urgent.
Mark?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the pole attachment agreement between Central Maine Power and the town of Shebig Island pending the positive approval from our attorney.
All right,
Second.
all right. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, there we go. As soon as we get it. All right, moving on, unless You had something to add? All right. 23-025 to authorize the town administrator to expend $45,000 from the Public Works Equipment Reserve to secure the New Holland tractor as stated on the Beauregard quote dated 03, March 1st, 2023.
So the last conversation that took place, Board of Selectmen, were behind the Beauregard equipment, the New Holland tractor, and, I was asked to ask Public Works to see how they felt about it, and then talk to the, the place to see what we could do to secure it. Public Works ended up going out and, actually looking at the tractor. They liked it and everything went well, and I was in contact with the company, because these things, constantly come in and out. This was a way for us to secure what they have now and make sure that they can have it ready and installed and ready to go for us as of July 1st. And so we agreed that if we do half down now, then as the parts come in and they attach the stuff that, we can get it out here July 1st and then get them the rest of the money after we have the money approved after town meeting. So this motion is essentially you authorizing me to pull the money out of that reserve account to pay for 50% of this contract.
All right. Yes, Jeff.
I'd like to make a motion that we expend $45,000 from the Public Works Equipment Reserve to secure the New Holland tractor with Beauregard, which from the quote dated March 1st, 2023.
There's a second. All right, any more discussion? Yes.
So were you suggesting that we were gonna wait till after the July 1 new fiscal year to completely outfit the tractor upon approval of town meeting for the extra money before we actually get the money with the mower, the sweeper, and get the tractor at all?
That was the conversation that I had with him, but he did seem pretty flexible, and I think there's definitely flexibility that if they see that we followed through with our, giving them 50% down. The one issue that Public Works had was, and it's an understandable one, is yes, we can get the tractor right now, but then what if we have to send it back so they can, and it just doesn't make sense having to do that. And so if it could all be done before July 1st, then I think the company is flexible to be able to us have it before then, but it really depends on when the parts come in, and kind of the logistics of all of that. So July 1st, it would be here the week of July 1st, if anything, and then we would pay them the rest. But at this point, it's kind of very fluent and flexible.
Okay, so I'll be quick. So sweep, as far as not having a sweeper before July 1, I guess they could probably air below the sides of the roads up one more time to be ready for the seasonal influx of
Yeah.
bicycles and mopeds and all of that. And the mowing wouldn't be a big deal if it didn't get done until after July 1.
Yeah.
The dirt roads, though, are really bad this year, and I'm wondering if there's any way they can take a whack at those, because this machine will probably also be a function of dragging those dirt roads, correct?
That is the idea, yes. And then while we're on that subject, when Chuck went there, the guy gave him a quote for a cutter, which is there's like 2 or 3 other parts that could be attached to this machine in the future that they figured, and something to do with the road, the dragger for the road to replace that piece was one of the things. And so he was wondering about whether we can add this $3,500 quote, but at this point, I was holding off to see how we stand with the budget and whether what is being put in the budget for the tractor now could help us still have enough funds in there for that part.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that that was talked about, because I would urge some out of the box thinking before the end of the budget year. Maybe we can take some excess funds from the existing public works department and secure that.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah, and
you.
that's what I figured, if we get closer to the end of the budget, we could see where is our, our equipment maintenance line stands and whether we can use some of the funds there and some of the
Yeah.
funds in.
Thank you.
All right. So there's a motion on the table. Any other discussion? All in favor? 23-026 to discuss stone wharf RFQ and take any necessary action.
We're talking about.
I was gonna suggest that Carol probably should be here any minute, so maybe it would be
That's a good idea.
helpful if, she's here, if she was here.
All right, Carol, tell us something about that.
I'll go ahead and start and.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late.
No worries.
Can fill in. So we, Nika, Carol and I had our conversation with one of the three engineering companies that we had spoken to, who gave us the responses to the RFQ, the request for qualifications. And it was the one that the three of us thought was at the top of the list. So we went into more detail with them regarding the actual work that would be done, how it ties to other work that they are doing for the DOT of the state of Maine. And that conversation, I would say, further cemented our impression that they were the right one to go with. And that would be the company called Weston Sampson. If you remember, Weston Sampson is partnering with Woods Hole Group on the modeling work, with very specific numbers and engineering part of the modeling work for sea level rise. And Woods Hole Group has done the entire shoreline of that work for the state of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. They are now contracting with the state of Maine to do that work for the entire state of Maine. So there's some leverage opportunity there. Some of the work that we need is a bit more granular and specific, but there is leverage there. And of the three companies, and again, what we're talking about going after right now is just the sea level rise modeling, and not like marrying somebody who's going to take this project all the way to the end. This is just for the sea level rise and the few things that relate to that at the end of it. The other two companies were Wright Pierce and a company called GZA. And they all had experience in the area of modeling. But if Wright Pierce had this much experience and GZA had this much experience, Weston Sampson had this much experience. They made the statement that they had, I may get this number wrong, but I believe they said that they had done 127 appeals to FEMA to fine tune and make more accurate their projects requirements for sea level rise modeling, as opposed to what FEMA has, which is very macro in scale, and they haven't lost one. They've won every one of them. So I'll shut up and let Carol lead the talk.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that, like Bob said, we definitely went through a good interview. We had the same set of questions for each firm. They were all very well interviewed. Everyone, had everything to bring to the table, but this one company just really stood out to the point that we followed up and had an additional interview with them. And they were very willing and accommodating to do that and eager to start to work with the town. And so and I think that's, that's something that we were hoping for, is we wanted to make sure that they were interested in the small little fish of ours, and they were, so.
All right, so thank you all for the work on that. And so do I have a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town administrator to enter into an agreement for a scope of work with the firm of Weston and Sampson and Woods Hole Group. Not to exceed the grant amount.
Did you say in Woods Hole? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's the
They're from-
Woods, it's called the Woods Hole Group.
Woods Hole Group.
Right.
And the, not to exceed the amount of the grant, which you know what that is, it's 75, it's just under 75,
I can
100,
give you the exact.
75,000.
all right. I just wanted to.
So the
put it out
match,
there.
so this is not part of the motion, but
Oh.
the match is 25 for the town and 50 from the state.
Okay,
About,
all right.
And that was my question, so thank you.
Is there a second? Jen second. All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous. Moving on. 23-027, to hear an update on Fowler property appeal and take any necessary action.
In that package, you had two different emails from the town attorney. The first one was very general in terms of in a situation like this, what authority the selectmen have, and then the second one was more specific to this particular situation. And as you had, this stems from you having asked me to meet with the code enforcement officer and the town attorney, and so we met, and Jim Butler had shown some pictures to the town attorney of what the property current looks like, and explained, haven't seen it, and the town attorney, I think the second email really outlines her recommendations, but kind of, I guess, the whole, in a nutshell, it puts the selectmen at this point in a position of making any kind of decisions moving forward, and the four options as outlined by the town attorney is, you could, which, was it, so it was the email dated March 30th. You have four different options that you could do. And she explained what her recommendation would be, so.
Right, Paul.
Just a couple of comments. My opinion, we have not, as a town, we have not lived up to the terms of notice of violation. Notice of violation very specifically said that Mr. Fowler needed to submit a written plan of action within 14 days. A written plan of action within 14 days, quite clearly stated. When that didn't happen, the response we got, well, we've spoken with him and he's doing what he needs to do. That's not a written plan of action. So I'm just saying, frankly, I'm embarrassed that we haven't followed through on this so far, but I think we need to now. Separate from that, in some of these meetings, Jim, who, again, I think we all want to help Jim succeed in any way we can.
Jim?
Fowler, sorry. Mr. Fowler asked us for direction. And we previously took the position that we thought was the right position to take within our ordinances, which is that it goes up to the code officer to give that direction, but it hasn't happened. So after reading through all the options that Natalie gave us, I'd like to make a motion, if I could, that we direct Natalie to write a consent agreement that would be signed by the select board. And the following points are required. And Chris, I can give this to you.
You just email it to me? Okay.
Yeah. Point number one, all commercial equipment such as tractors, trucks, wood splitters, and fuel containers must be removed within 14 days. Point number two, all non-operating automobiles must be removed within 14 days. So that's the end of the motion. I would add that from earlier correspondence and conversations with Natalie, we know that the findings of fact from the Board of Appeals all bear weight in what needs to be done. We know that Jim brought up the concept of a contractor storage yard, which we do not have in our ordinance as a freestanding way to achieve use of a piece of land. And we know that Mr. Fowler doesn't live on the land, so it's nothing like a home occupation. So I think we have to follow through with this, and separate from that, I know the planning board is taking a look at how to deal with this so that work like the work Mr. Fowler does and like other contractors do can be done, but that's my motion.
Need a
Okay.
second.
We need a second on that.
I'll second it.
All right. I have a comment. The first one was to remove all the tractors, and then the second one was to remove all the non-working vehicles off the site.
Yeah.
What about the working vehicles? Is he allowed to park his vehicles on the site?
If it's commercial equipment, no. What I said, the first point was all commercial equipment, such as tractors, trucks, wood splitters, and fuel
Okay.
containers.
All
must
right,
be
sorry,
removed.
I misheard. What about the shed or
I
the
didn't-
top
I
area?
didn't include that. I don't know the details of that shed. If it's in the ground, then it's way past requiring a permit. If it's not in the ground, I don't know where that stands in the zoning ordinance.
Okay,
Carol.
Karen?
Well, yeah, and Natalie's comments, she basically, she sort of suggested that if there's any structure on the property, it should comply with all applicable zoning and code. And so maybe we need to put it in those terms, because you haven't said anything about the building, right?
Correct.
And so either it needs to come down or be in compliance, seems to me.
Yeah,
So could I amend my motion?
yes.
Point 3, any structures must comply with current zoning ordinances within 14. A plan must be submitted for any buildings that are on the property. A plan must be submitted within 14 days for those buildings to be brought into compliance with current zoning ordinances.
Or taken down, or
Or
removed.
taken down.
All right, Jen, do you agree with you?
I do
Yeah.
agree with the amendment. The only question I have is what, our CEO sent to Mr. Fowler, specifically said that there would be, fines assessed if it wasn't, followed through with. And I think it's important to restate that in this document that we're sending to him. Just to say that, this is the next step, unfortunately.
So is there a number for those fines?
It's up to, I think there's
It's
a
up to the
minimum,
board.
right? It's up to us.
Okay. Go ahead, Gail.
So, and also in Natalie's comments, but also the neighbors, I think there is a concern about the petroleum products that are stored there. And I think the neighbors brought that up. The people who filed the complaint described the petroleum spill that impacted, that Fowler had to clean up. And so I think we need to include something about, no storage of petroleum products on the property.
Yeah, I believe that was his
Is that
first one
in
to
yours?
remove all the,
So you have remove, what is yours? I'm sorry.
I'll read it again. I can still send it to you. Point 1, all commercial equipment such as tractors, trucks, wood splitters, and fuel containers must be removed within 14 days.
Yeah, and I guess I would say no petroleum products will be stored on the property going, something to that effect.
If the fuel containers have to be removed.
That's not saying they can't bring them back. Right? I mean, you gotta think about how this can be interpreted, and I would say they can be removed, and then 2 weeks later, they can come back, right? I mean, I'm not
I understand what you're
disagreeing with
saying.
you, I'm just saying, and I guess to that end, I do think that this would need to be approved, be reviewed by our legal counsel to make sure it's enforceable.
She's correct.
She's gonna write
Yeah,
it, and
she's
then it's
gonna
gonna come back to you, and
To sign.
you would be the body that would authorize and be the body that would.
So the last thing is typically, I thought the group that files a complaint also gets to review the consent, or can participate in the development or review of the consent order. That's often the way it goes. So is that in the plan?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I can
Is that
follow
in
up with
ordinance?
the property owners. I know that one time since then, when I followed up and had conversation, the property owners said that they're not interested in having any more discussions, but I can definitely follow up to see if they're
Yeah, they don't need,
interested in the consent.
We can give them a copy and then we'll hold a public meeting anyway, so.
well, but I mean, they should see a draft consent order and be able to provide comments back to us and the attorney on anything
They should be giving you bills.
right,
Yes.
they should
They
be
can
given
choose
a
not to, they
comment.
should be giving
Yeah,
you.
and that's all I'm asking, is
So-
that they're in the loop.
To deal with Carol's point, I would amend it further to say, all commercial equipment such as tractors, trucks, wood splitters, and fuel containers must be permanently removed within 14 days. All non-operating automobiles must be permanently removed within 14 days. All buildings must be brought into compliance, and a plan for such must be must be submitted within 14 days. If the above 3 items are not completed within 14 days, then the fines described in the notice of violation can be issued at the discretion of the select board.
Are you okay with his amendment?
I am.
All right. Any other comments? All right.
Could I have permission to ask one or two of the planning board members a question? John Wilson, you're the current chairman of the planning board? And so is that accurate that you guys are starting to talk about this existing possible gray area problem for our town and neighborhood?
We're beginning to dig in, yes.
Okay. I'm kind of new to this consent agreement situation myself. I've never had this come at this board all the time that I've served on this select board. And I'm hesitant with it, quite frankly. And the reason that I'm hesitant with it, even though there's getting to be clearer guidance on how it could be beneficial, especially in this case and possibly any cases moving forward. The reason I'm hesitant is that I kind of hope and believe that if we have inadequate or unenforceable or inappropriate land use ordinances that we may have carried over from Cumberland, or we're just outgrowing some of them, or we're changing, I think we as a planning board and a community need to talk about that. And I'm glad to hear that you're starting to talk about that for possible recommendations to us and the voters. I fear that this existing board and future select board may slightly override or push aside parts of ordinances, if I may, with consent agreements. So maybe it's just that I don't understand consent agreements and the possible value of them, but that's just me. So I applaud the planning board for recognizing at least this problem and starting to face it head on.
Carol?
Yeah, and I think fundamentally, this problem is a commercial use in a residential zone. And so I think what Bob tried to do with his comments was to articulate what specifically are commercial uses that are being, implemented in this residential zone. But the overriding problem here is, a zoning violation primarily. We have other problems about if you want to have work equipment in your yard, how are you going to do it? And even I think some of the activities that are on the list of permitted activities are pretty antiquated. So those kinds of things are things we need to revisit. But I think fundamentally, we have, an inappropriate use in a residential zone. So I feel comfortable when I went back to look at all the zoning, the violations that were issued for Hope Island, the notice of violation had specific actions in them. So it was very clear to the individual that received the notice of violation, what action needed to be taken. So I think for future reference, that's the way it should be structured, and that would avoid the need for a consent order. And so there were cases where the Hope Island crew did not comply with the notice of violation. They got a letter from the attorney saying, if you don't do this, then we're gonna, go to the next step, but they never did have to do that. But I think part of the problem here was that the notice of violation was it didn't have any specifics. And so in fairness to the property owner, he may truly think he's complied.
Oh,
And just one other comment, relative to what Mark said. A consent decree is a legal document. And I certainly am not capable of drafting, I'm not a lawyer. What I'm asking is that Natalie cover these 4 points in what she drafts. And at that point, we get it back and we've given the other party in this whole thing a chance to look it over as per ordinance and state law. When we sign it, then it becomes a legal document. If it's not lived up to, then there are enforcement options and courts and all that kind of stuff. But it's when the ordinance isn't being followed, this is what you have to do. So, I don't like it. And I really want to see us fix things so that people who want to work here can work here. But until we do that, and we owe it to the citizens to follow up on what our ordinances say are the law of our town. Shut up.
right. Any other discussion? Any discussion from the public? John?
I would just address what Mark said about consent decrees, potentially overruling the zoning ordinance. And as far as I've seen consent decrees, they are more aimed at finding a way to make the ordinance work without necessarily overburdening somebody. In other words, giving them time to work things out or whatever. But I haven't found any instances where consent decrees have overruled the ordinance. They may have extended time periods or changed the fine or something like that, but the effect of having to comply is usually not touched. There was an instance, I think, where we had a proposal at one time for a consent decree that might have done that, and I don't think that would have passed muster.
All right, Michael?
Yeah. I have a problem with this because most of the island is residential, but there are other examples of commercial operations in residential areas. And there are enough obstacles to people who want to work on the island, who don't happen to live here already. Commute out every day, bring everything out. Basically, we're just saying, follow it. And you can't work on your live if you can't keep it secure here. So I agree, we have ordinances and they should be enforced, but sometimes the ordinances, as you said, are left over from Cumberland. Sometimes they're brought to somebody's wishful thinking instead of actual understanding what it's going to be like living out here. And I think you're making a mistake.
All right. Any other comments? Yes.
Being a board member for quite a while now, not once has anybody brought forward any specific adjustments they'd like to see to the zoning code. We're taking that on our own volition. It's supposed to be a selectman guided effort, and we can take cues from citizens, but we haven't seen that, so we're operating on our own accord here. So notwithstanding a lot of folks' well wishes, this is a lot of land, and it's got to be upheld. And if somebody had decided to come in with a proposal for this type of thing, and we had a public process, planning board application was made, and, you know, design professional maybe was involved, and this maybe could have come to a better conclusion. But instead, about 3 months after we moved to the island, 2 doors down, somebody started cutting down trees for a week. And then this tarp shack showed up for about 3 years. Since the appeal, where all that's supposed to be adjudicated and it's supposed to be removed 14 days after that, nothing happened. And then a little bit later, it got a little more expanded, more equipment showed up, another drive was added to North Road, so legal to have more than one drive. And yeah, activities continue. There's a borrow pile for spring work that happened. Lots of wood around. So this isn't somebody that's coming to the island wanting to do work and fitting in and doing right by this community all the way. This is somebody who came to this island with an idea of what they wanted to do, irrespective of the rights of the neighboring landowners. I'm a butter, so this would be a trilateral agreement that you guys are considering here. And it would require a public process, because the agreed parties are me. My drinking water, 150 feet, is my well from where their gas bill was, and they admitted it. So this affects families, this affects our future. I'm not gonna continue on the planning board, we're not gonna respect the zoning ordinance. I mean, what's the point? So if somebody wants to come in and join us, got an empty room every night, we have that meeting, and we'd love to hear you. We have folks doing it the right way right now. And there is a process for that, and we're engaged with that, and with those groups seeking to do it the right way. Irrespective of the roadblocks from Cumberland, they're coming in the front door, engaging with us and doing it the right way. So I respectfully disagree. This is an opportunity for islanders to have a business doing it the right way. Or folks from abroad, they want to come over here and come up with a plan to do it the right way. There's an ordinance there to support them. This planning board wide open to ideas and supporting families on this island. They're made up of families from this island. So I think, anyway, I think you need to be considering also the folks that are impacted by this decision here and outside this room.
All right, thank you. Oh,
Just one other point, in one of the early public hearings, Jim Fowler did identify other alternatives that he has. So I'm just going to put that out there.
all right, any other comments?
I have a question, Bill.
Yes.
How is it that the code enforcement officer actually enforces the code? How does he do that? Does he drive around the island and say, whoa, look at that, and that? Does he wait for someone to file a complaint? So what is the mechanism for looking for code violations and working with people to get them corrected? Operational, you know, how does that work?
I don't personally know his day-to-day routine. I do know that he does do site visits, and he's been, since COVID hit, you know, a lot of, not only him, but a lot of code officers have allowed pictures of certain things, not everything. But other than that, Bob?
Yeah, to further answer your question, in the ordinances, it's stated clearly that it's the Board of Selectmen's responsibility to inform the code officer about issues that they've observed. And then the other way in which the code officer does his job is when people apply for permits or for variances. So if someone wanted to apply for a way to run a business in the residential zone, as Travis was saying, the proper process would be to go through the planning, through the code enforcement officer to begin the process of what then becomes, in some cases, a site plan review. There's major site plan review, there's minor site plan review. So the manner in which things are brought to his attention is all spelled out in the ordinance.
Okay. So do you guys drive around and say, whoa? Let's bring this to Jim's attention.
Mark?
technically in our select board ordinance, it says enforce codes of ordinances. Do we drive around and look for violations? Likely not. I've dealt with a lot of code enforcement officers in my time as a builder, a lot of them from Cumberland and now a few of them from Shebig. And I've had conversations with most of them, and I have asked, not all of them, some of them, how do you decide what you're going to enforce and deal with or not? And most of them have said the similar type of statement. They don't drive around Cumberland or Shebig Island or even Hope Island looking for violations. If they see a violation, they may file it in their mind, they may write it down, they may save it for later and have a conversation with the individual. Most times, it's a scheduled site visit or a complaint. That's what I've heard from almost every code officer. I think it's realistic most of the time for that, for it to be that way. I think that's the way it kind of works. You know, is it perfect? Certainly not. Is a police officer's enforcement of everything perfect? Maybe not. Marine patrol, so on and so forth. I think enforcement is a different type of area to be in, and it's not the most popular one, most certainly with a lot of people. So that's how I heard it and got feedback from them. I don't know if that was helpful or not to you.
Yeah, I just want to know operationally, how did we get here? Because we all drove by the Fowler's Place for years now. And I guess I assumed that something had been worked out until the complaint started getting some traction. But when I drive around now, I see many more violations than I did before this complaint. And that's just because of awareness. I might not have noticed beforehand.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the table in a second. All in favor? All right, moving on to 23-028 to hear an update on Hope Island visit. We briefly touched on that a little bit before in the TA report. We were waiting for you, Carol, to come if you had anything to add or anything you wanted to say.
I think there's a lot of activity on the site that is going to require a lot of oversight. And Jim had said he'd only been up there 4 or 5 months prior, so I think we need to consider more frequent visits. And I had a conversation with the DEP about some permit requirements or, permit oversights that even predate the current owner. And I haven't had an update. I gave him Vika's contact information, or her Vika's contact information, but I don't think they've said anything. So I think it might be worthwhile for Vika to contact the main DP, or I can do it if you prefer. She's got too much on her plate, but I think we should find out where they are in the DEP process, because that could be relevant to us. But a lot of activity going on, I would say. That's my, and I have some concerns about, I have some concerns about a few things, but I don't think now's the time to discuss it.
I agree with what Carol just said, and also the part now is not the time to go, not the time to go into great detail. I believe there are code issues out there in which there is violation. And I believe there's a lack of understanding on their part as to some of the details of the zoning ordinance. And I think some of that falls back to us. And we should talk about it in greater detail.
Okay. Right. Vika, did you have something to add? Carol, you good?
Yep.
All right, moving on. 23 029 to discuss road closures and take any necessary action. So this is for the road restriction for this winter. Since we are taking over the road commissioner position, either temporary or permanently, we have it's our duty to call this if we want to lift it or not. Because
So in talking to Bo about this particular conversation, I asked Chuck, what the public works recommendation is, because currently the roads are posted until the 15th, 16th. And he said that at this point, he feels comfortable that if they were to be lifted, that they could, but having had the conversation about me no longer being the road commissioner, I wasn't gonna make that decision, which is, now it's up to you to make.
Bob,
I would just offer that the lack of frost in the ground this year gave the weather the opportunity for the roads to get back into late spring, early summer condition earlier than we've ever seen. I don't see evidence of potholes on the paved roads exhibiting chipping away or deep pools of water in them outside of rain events. And I also would say that this is my first day being a member of the road commission, so I don't know what I'm talking about. What do you think?
Same thing with you, dude. We did lack of frost this year. We've only had probably a few weeks of frost out here. The lack of snow with this wind that we've had, the sun has been drying the ground. We don't have as much puddles on the side of the roads. Yeah, to me, I think there's no need to have it posted. Mark?
Yeah, before I make this motion, I'm just gonna disclose, I don't need a truck right now.
Yeah, well,
We're trying to wrap up a job, we're not trying to start one, so
yeah.
I'm not gonna be in need of a truck over 23,000 pounds, which is the weight. The roads are dried up, there wasn't as much frost, there's no water coming up through the cracks. I read the signs over in Yarmouth, they're all gonna be lifted April 2nd. According to what I read anyway, so I'll make a motion to remove the weight postings on our roads effective tomorrow morning, so that people can bring heavier vehicles if they'd like.
All right, there's a second?
Second.
All right. I'll abstain from voting because, I have vested interest in the roads. So is there any other comments?
Who seconded it?
Oh, Carol, sorry. Any comments from the public? All right, all in favor? All right, moving on. 23 030 to discuss Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage Foundation visit to take any necessary action. All right, so we had a workshop with DMR about agriculture leases. And then based on some of the talks that happened, Ernie Burgess was here and suggested that we should look into this foundation to come over and talk to the town about a moratorium, the town creating a moratorium. Now, I'm not quite sure the whole details of that, what exactly that is and what it would do, but I figured a citizen with a few other citizens here agreed that it wouldn't hurt to have them come over and talk to us if we had concerns about the waters of Shebig. So I got in, after talking to the board here, I continued the talks with the foundation, arranged a visit for the next meeting Then there was some homework done by Bob and Carol, and I don't know who else, Jen too. Then plus a letter from Jeff Putnam, and then some other concerned citizens that did not want them to come to talk to the town. So we're here to see if you guys just want me to call her and say thank you, but no thanks.
Not knowing about this group, and then learning more about this group, it's my opinion that it's not something that the board or the town should facilitate. If someone else in the public wants to bring this person over and have a meeting and have the public here, I think that's fine. But it's not our place to do so.
Okay. Anybody else? Mark or Carol?
I spoke with Jeff after he left the message, and I apologized to him for our possible knee-jerk reaction with this, so we'll see where this vote goes with this one.
All right, Carol?
Yeah, and I agree with Jen, and I do know the history of the organization. I guess I should have, I guess there was sort of a misunderstanding. I don't think we discussed it, the sort of objective. I never had an objective that, you know, the town might be considering a moratorium. I was only giving them an opportunity, and I think if you remember, we cut it back from a workshop and it just kept shrinking till we made it very small. But the tactics that this group has used in other communities has been suspect. And so I did call a number of people, and, you know, and I definitely feel, I agree with Jen. I don't think it's appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to sponsor this group at a Board of Selectmen meeting. You know, they have a very particular agenda, and they have some tactics that I don't think are totally appropriate, and I don't think we want our community to participate in that.
Okay. Well,
I hesitated to speak last time we talked about this because of my roles in oyster farming. And I kind of hesitate to speak about it again, but I would offer that for any citizen of the town of Shebig to want to talk to our board, I think is a wonderful thing about any cause, and we should entertain that. But when groups that feel to me like special interest groups want to make a pitch, I think that's going to place we shouldn't go to. I don't care whether it's aquaculture or somebody wanting to put up LNG or somebody wanting to put up windmills or whatever. If it's a special interest group, I don't think we should be using this forum as a place to hear those kind of appeals. Again, if somebody wants to organize a public workshop with healthy Casco bays, I'm sure I'll show up to it, but right forum for that is not this. So.
okay. Carol?
So I'd like to make a motion that we, you know,
I don't think we really need a motion. I think it's just an agreement.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So if you guys all agree, I'll give her a call tomorrow morning. And then I can give a call to Ernie Burgess also and let him know that if he's interested in whatever the foundation does, that he's more than happy to do it on his own time. All right? Is that good? All right, Jeff?
I'll make it quick, but I do want to stress the importance of staying really engaged in the aquaculture process, the board, the selectmen in the town, harbor master, all that. I mean, there is definitely aquaculture leases that could be too big or could be in places where it doesn't fit for our waters. So I encourage you to take each application that you get on its own merit and decide whether it's a right fit for the island. But, you know, a blanket statement to say we're against all aquaculture, it's just not, it's not really good for, you know, for maritime history and, you know, future of the island. So just continue to stay engaged and, you know, don't be afraid to speak out against aquaculture that doesn't fit in our waters. But take each application as it is.
All right, thank you. All right,
If I could bring up one correspondence item now instead of waiting for correspondence, but it relates very specifically to this.
Great, go ahead.
I had written after that meeting where the state came and talked to us, in which they were interviewing, what did we want? What were our concerns about aquaculture? I reached out to Cole Conway, whose organization within the state is now in charge of aquaculture, and asked her if she could give an update on the closure that exists. So basically all of Casco Bay south of us. And got a response back just a couple days ago from Brian Lewis, who's the representative from that organization that has responsibility for this area, for testing in particular. So as some of you know, they've been talking about testing those waters. They were closed sort of presumptively without specific testing. They were closed presumptively based on stormwater sewage combination discharge from the towns of Portland and Falmouth. And starting a couple of years ago, there was a lot of chatter about you really need to test it, not just close it presumptively. Sorry for the delay. We're in the process of evaluating the waters around Long Island to determine if we can upgrade the water quality classification. I spoke with the scientists involved, and we are planning to finalize that assessment this year. If everything goes well, that would mean a reclassification could happen in 2023, depending on the results. So that would work well for Shabig, in that people from further up the bay or from Portland or Scarborough who wanted to establish something somewhere in Casco Bay don't have to come all the way up to Shabig. There will be a lot more water open to them.
Right, Carol?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Brian this week, so I got a little bit more of an update. I just want to be sure people are aware that the portion of the waters that will be opened are fairly small. So it's basically the bottom of Long Island heading over towards Basket, I guess. So it's not a very big area that they're looking at opening. The other thing we discussed is they are currently, because I had been in touch with him about the fact that the harbor master is no longer sampling or coordinating the sampling. And as it turns out, and that is actually how for Long Island, they lost they were classified open at one point and then became closed because they didn't do their bacterial sampling. So anyway, the upshot of the conversation is they would very much like both Shabig and Long to take on the regular sampling programs, as most, the way he explained it to me, almost every community, either Shellfish Committee or Harbor Master, is doing that. So it's something we can talk about in the future, but it's a commitment that we may want to make so that we can keep the waters open. So just since Bob brought it up, I thought I'd add it there instead of later. And he seemed very confident that the water quality has been good, so he's pretty confident they'll be able to open Long Island's waters.
I think Jeff's last comment is a good one. I think we as a community and we as our main town committee that pays attention to this is the Coastal Waters Committee, along with the Harbor Master. And even though it's the state that decides the issuance of a lease or not, or whether it's experimental or permanent, I think it is important to keep an eye on that, and keep the radar open on it. And I think being at that last meeting with Coastal Waters, I think you might agree, Carol, that it sounds like they've got a pretty good grasp on it after some explanation from the state. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
So I agree with Jeff's comment. It's okay to keep your eyes open and say, hey, this one doesn't look and feel right.
All right. All right. Any other comments on this?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, moving on to other business. This was a request I got from Bob to put those on there, which it was previously on there some time ago. This is a location where if something comes up at the last minute, we can discuss it and make a motion on it. So without an actual agenda, yes.
If you're looking for something for a motion.
Not
So I
really.
got- This is one where I need one from you.
Okay.
So I got an email from Greater Portland, JP Cog. And as you remember last year, for some of you that were on this committee, they have a general assembly meeting every year and they need delegates. It's a requirement, part of us being a part of JP Cog, we're supposed to have delegates from every community. And they have an annual summit that's held at St. Joseph's College. I went to it last year. It's a good networking place. I'm not planning to go this year because it's a day that I could be doing other things that I need to get done. But anyways, last year we had Mark and myself were the two delegates and we did not have an alternate because nobody else was willing to be a part of it. So if somebody's interested there really requires nothing. I mean, Mark could probably speak for it. Have you had any contact or had to do anything? You didn't go to the summit last year, but being a delegate for JP Cog General Assembly.
I'm sorry, I did not, and I can't speak to it very well. I just know that GP Cog helps us
Yeah.
in a couple of areas, and one of them is bulk purchasing of our diesel fuel for our town equipment and the school bus.
Yeah, so if there is somebody else that's interested to be a delegate and they're interested in going to the summit, I would just need a motion to
Carol.
have that other delegate.
Does it have to be the Board of Selectmen? Can it be staff, town staff?
So my understanding was it was Board of Selectmen or like a town administrator or a manager position, which is why I was a board member and myself.
Bob,
I'll do
all right. So is there a motion? That effect?
I make a motion that Bob be our delegate to the GP Cog meeting, summit meeting.
He would just be a delegate of the JP Cog General Assembly.
it. What is the summer?
It is.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right when you move it.
All day, all weekend.
It's Thursday, May 25th. It is at St. Joseph's and they have, last year I went, they had like a couple hour like presentations. And it's,
Yeah, I already signed up for it.
there we go.
Oh, awesome.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any discussion on motion? All right, all in favor? All right. Anything else?
I have something under communications, but I can do that then.
All right, any other business that somebody wants? Yes,
Yeah,
Bob.
I guess I'll bring it up here, but, oh, sorry.
This is a follow-up to an earlier meeting that we had about streamlining and improving the way we all work together and work with town staff and all that kind of thing. And it leverages off of time that I spent on other boards. So I'd like to make a motion that we have one board member be our primary focus in communicating with the town administrator, from the board to the town administrator. And instead of all of us emailing her all the time and all that kind of thing. So I would like to make a motion, and I've already asked the person if she would willing to be nominated for that. I'd like to make a motion that Jen take that responsibility.
Is there a second on the motion for discussion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Will the communication increase? That's what I'm asking is, let's just say you're meeting with the town, with Vika, and you're talking about how things are going and how things are, maybe the office isn't gonna be open or the staff is unavailable or things are falling apart over here. Are we going to get notified?
Julia, I'll tell you everything.
Good, thank you.
So Oh, Carol.
So what's the frequency you're thinking of initially?
I think I was just gonna try and work it out, and depending on what I get from you all, working it out would be good, kind of making this up as we go.
I don't oppose the communication. My only is the logistics of it. How are we as a board gonna convey to Jen information to pass on? And how is the information she gets from Vika passed on to us? I just would like a little clarification on that. Is there an idea? I just,
If you want to text me, that's the quickest way for me to get information. I don't check my email continuously all day. If it's something like urgent, I would assume you would text me. If it's a not so urgent thing, send me an email.
so what kind of information are you hoping to? I mean, Bob or Jen, I don't, it doesn't matter who answers the question. I'm just wondering what kind of communication you're thinking of passing on.
Everything from complaints to coaching to developmental help to requests for information that the whole board needs. If I need a small piece of information from Vika, I'm still gonna stop by the office or call her, that's fine.
Mhm.
But if I have a complaint about something, I would go to Jen.
How's this different from the chair? Because my understanding, that's the role between the chair and the town administrator, the manager. So how's this different? I guess it's,
That's what I was kind of.
my perspective is I wouldn't know what to distinguish between what would go to one person or the other.
Right.
My understanding is I go to the chair for those things.
And you're basing that on something written or just the way it's been?
I
or-
guess just my experience having worked in the office for the last 7 years and seeing kind of the process that's taken place and having talked to other
So
managers.
Would it be helpful if then I reached out to the chair and Vika, or just both? And just said, okay, this is what's on our plate this week. Does
Or-
that help you?
Or make it that the vice chair does it. And make that a long-standing thing, that the vice chair is the communication hub, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it. Mark,
I think historically Vika's comment is correct. I think historically, the chairperson, he or she, would work most directly with the town administrator and then help report back to the entire select board. I think that's accurate. I'm not being funny or sarcastic when I say this, but I think you're getting ready to not sign up for another term, and you only have a short,
I'm not, no.
yeah, so you have a short period of time left, and I think Jen's ready to take this over, so I don't see it as a negative thing.
Mhm.
Just a comment.
Just so you know, this wasn't on my radar. This was something Bob talked to me about. And I think that I'm hoping that by doing this, it will help with the level of frustration that some people are feeling with just asking questions and not knowing when to, or who to go to, or whatever.
Yes,
And it may warm you up for the chairperson's nomination.
That's very exciting.
all right, so there was a motion on the table, that's Carol seconded, right?
Sounds good.
I can't remember who seconded it. Mark? Mark did. All right.
All right. Well,
All right.
agreement.
My view on it, it's a little confusing for me right now. I mean, I would like a little direction, I guess, but I'm not opposed to communications or making communication easier. That's all so. And I would like to know where I end up in the middle, or the chair ends up in the middle of these communications, so.
Can I recommend that maybe Jen, Bo and I meet to square away those details?
Love to.
So there's a motion on the table.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So are we done with the discussion on this? All in favor? All right. Any other business?
I just have a quick, the climate action team had submitted a grant application to the Casco Bay Estuary project, didn't get funded, but they were invited to submit basically the same grant or similar grant to the Island Institute. So I'm just making sure that it's okay with the town that we submit. This is a tide gauge, the tide gauge grant that we submitted before, so they've kind of beefed it up and they would like to submit it, but I wanted to check first before they do that. And we'll copy Nico when they submit.
It's called a tide gauge.
Tide, as
Tide
a
gauge.
tidal gauge, yeah.
Okay.
I know that we need permission, we can't just do it, so that's why I'm asking.
All right.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a
No, I
motion
think
for that
I
or
just
a-
want, it's
I don't know, because there's a warrant article that says that the town of
Apply for
selectmen
grants.
have the discretion to apply for grants. So I think if you're all on board with it, it's not a motion or grant by grant motion type of thing.
right, and the question usually gets asked, we don't have to put any money in, so it's just, we're looking 100% funding, so it's not, the town doesn't have to come up with anything.
Anybody against it?
Good.
All in favor of her doing that? Okay, we're all in favor of that. Can I ask a request just to move things along about the other business? If this is something that you are aware of, like the day of or something like that, send out an email with a brief description of it so that people are aware of it, so that it doesn't would alleviate some of the discussion. That's all. And if we need further discussion, then we can address it during that time. And it's nothing bad that you guys did. You guys didn't do anything bad. I'm just process. All right. Anything else?
No, I just have one other communication that
We're not even on communication yet.
Other business
All right.
communication, they're a
Let's
little.
go to communication now.
It's that the harbor master had forwarded me. It's a harbor management access grant for coastal waters and great ponds. And he said that there was a small discussion or the information stemmed from coastal waters discussion about possibly maybe we could apply for one of these grants to see if some of the funding could be provided for a replacement for a float or whatnot. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I wasn't sure if any of you were familiar with it, but could be opportunity to apply for a grant or something around, floats or whatnot. Harbor Management Access Grant for Coastal Waters and the Great Palms.
And so Vika, Herb is sort of helping the committee, so I would suggest you could forward it to him, and he might be willing to, if you pull something together with the committee.
Okay, I can do that.
He's sort of their secretary now.
You got an official
I
application.
think he, well, I know, but I think he will, because I think that's.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
And yes, Bob.
I've got a correspondence item, ready for the next one. Main Island Coalition met on March 30th, just a couple of highlights from the meeting. Long Island is considering funding a part-time position aimed at affordable housing by expanding their town administrator position from part-time to a little bit more part-time. They talk about how they have land that they have made available, but they haven't found anybody to take the land. One of our nonprofits offered to talk with Mark Green about what's going on with affordable housing over here. We talked about LD 2003, and I expressed some of my concerns about it being delayed, and Hannah Ingrid stated she doesn't think it's gonna be delayed. There was a big hearing yesterday about that, which was select committee on housing. I don't know how that went yet. Lady, or the man from Collins' office said that there's a lot of direct funding available right now for ambulances and public safety buildings.
Right.
A lot of money. And he was saying, call us up and we will help you get it. I know we've been down this road before, thinking, oh, there's earmarks, but we didn't really know what we wanted. But I think we're pretty far down the road now to A, knowing what we want toward public safety building, and B, we'll be talking about this in capital, but we've got this ongoing need to replenish our fire department and things like that. So worth noting. And then Golden Direct kind of jumped on that and said, I'm quoting, "This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for funding for infrastructure, big things, small things. They'll do the grant research." We're not in Golden District, whereas senators both take care of this, but Golden is not in the district. But should we be talking to Shelley's office or Susan Collins' office about public safety?
Just one question, are they saying an earmark for public safety or an infrastructure grant program?
They didn't
Oh,
specify.
okay, I,
They said, call us for help.
okay, you should.
All right, might be something to quick talk to Beth Wiles
Facilities, yeah.
and give her a little bit of that update
I'll do this.
and see if we can pursue that.
Yep.
That'd be great. Any other communications, Carol?
I'll be quick, but the DOT had our seminar, and the bottom line was they got back to me. Mark and I got on a call with them at the end of last week. Sort of just an initial call. So this was the harbor guy and a planner, and basically same thing, you know, there's a lot of money coming down the pipe. And so our primary question, we had two questions. One was the lot on Cousins Island, which is owned by DOT. I had asked them back in, November, where does the DOT stand? Would they pay to, basically do the resiliency improvements that are needed? And I think we got a pretty positive read on that they will likely take that on, and they are planning a site visit within the next month to come down and look at the lot. And it would be a cooperative, it's gonna require a lot of partners being involved, both the town, CTC, and probably the town of Yarmouth. And then the other thing we discussed was the stone pier sort of in general. And they named 3 different funding sources that we could potentially explore. They basically gave us some guidance that we need a 30% design to really be in a position to get funding. And they confirmed that if we wanted to go after something like an earmark or really any of the federal money, we kind of have to be in their queue, in their line, and kind of meet their metrics. And so I think it's the beginning of what's going to be a fairly long conversation with them. But I think we're starting to roll in terms of working on both of those projects. It sounded like they're ready to start on the parking lot. It's probably a 2 to 3 year time frame. The stone pier, it's hard to know exactly, but by selecting the Woods Hole group, that puts us in a good position to work with them. So lots of funding, but we definitely have a ways to go on both of those to access the funding. But I thought it was really productive, and I liked both of the guys that we met with. And Mark also, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I agree with Carol. I think it was a very good initial conversation. It's, I had to bring up my parking garage question, of course, with the parking lot, which is unlikely to ever come to fruition. What's the word?
Fruition.
Yeah, thank you. But I had to bring it up, because that's me. But it's encouraging that they understand they own the Cousins Island lot and they have responsibility, and it's not in a good position for storms and sea level rise. So we'll see where that goes. We briefly touched on maybe looking at the possibility of electric charging stations. I don't know if that's realistic for that lot or not. With respect to the stone wall for any project, we already know this. They urge that we pursue a design that is likely to pass with Army Corps restrictions of filling in or encroaching on intertidal areas. So we already know that from meetings. So it was a good meeting. I thank Carol for getting it going, and I think there'll be a lot more discussion with them. And we just wanted to see where it could go and who we were going to be possibly working with, and I think it's a good sign early. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? We all got a communication from Mark about parking on the side of the road. And then, did you receive this? You didn't receive
Oh, you didn't?
No.
From Mark Dyer?
it. Mhm. It's on there,
Did you get? When was it?
April 1st.
Oh, maybe I did. I don't know.
I don't know if my phone is doing funky things with email sometimes. Can I just explain what it is?
Yeah.
So basically, Rod McCormick is parking out in the side of the road next to his house. I assume in protest of us paving the road with the property marker issues down there and in multiple places on the island. But basically, his property line comes out into the existing road and the original layout of that. I don't want to call it a subdivision, but whatever the proper
His
term.
historic property line.
Yeah.
Road imagery.
And my concern is not to pick on someone who thinks we've done them wrong. That's not my point. My concern is we took a hard look at the possibilities of moving that road probably 3 years ago now. And we met with maybe some of the neighbors. I'm not sure you were involved or others, but I think we took a pretty good glance at it, met with CMP because the power line issues would have to be right away. And basically, we didn't end up pursuing it based on, in my opinion, the overall reasonable feasibility of it. In other words, the gain wasn't going to be what I thought it could be when we first started talking about it. And when you get down to the next corner where the Kern property and I'll call it the Rich property and the Rich Todd property, there's another area down there where the Rich is owned right out into the corner. And we would have had to have turned it over and gone and almost taken, maybe part of.
Wasn't it gonna be a lot of money for engineering and all that? kind of
Yeah.
Stuff too?
So, I'm willing to be part of a conversation with Rod if it's helpful to ask him to consider adjusting his parking behavior. But the way he's parking there is not blocking you from getting back and forth from Tanner's Cove Wharf, but it's certainly not helping, especially when the volume of getting stuff off the wharf and back and forth to the wharf starts to pick up like it's going to, and it does every year. So the other thing, I think this town needs to be a little bit more maybe strict with people about generally not having a good driveway anyway and parking out in the street. It's one thing to park in the street visiting someone or attending some sort of party or celebration, but to park out in the street, just to park out in the street because you either don't have a driveway or you don't like what the town has done with the road, instead of coming to us and say, I don't like what you've done with the road. It's really not a good thing for us to allow to continue. That's my point.
All right. Any other discussion? Any other communications? Sorry. All right, moving on to approve minutes from March 15, 2023.
So moved.
So second by Bob. All right, any discussion on this? All right, all in favor? All right. Items to be placed on the future agenda. I have the harbor master discussion,
Facilities
Flash out.
committee will be doing an update.
facility committee.
We'll have some ordinance. So a couple of years ago, the planning board recommended some ordinance changes. They did not take the proper steps to go to town meeting, nothing to do with the planning board. So we're now within the time frame of town meeting are starting the proper process and in discussion with the planning board. No new changes at this point are coming, just the ones. And so next, I mean, it's technically been, seen by select board, but not the select board. So at the next meeting, we'll have those ordinance changes from a couple of years ago, and then we'll proceed with the hearing and doing those the right
And I
way.
know they've been seen before, but have they been seen by the lawyer? Town attorney.
I think so. I can follow up with her just to double check. But yeah, I think so.
Can we
And there's
confirm on
not-
that to eliminate
Yes,
the extra
absolutely.
step? This one. Carol,
So do you have a date for a public hearing yet?
We don't, I have a time frame that we're looking to do it for, but I wanted to kind of go through this process and then get it figured out. But I do have, there is a specific week, I don't have the right calendar in front of me, that it's gonna be, I believe, I don't want to.
That's all right.
Because I'm not sure.
And then, so John, you gave us a memo, a couple meetings ago. So is it including that, or this is just all these changes that never got implemented?
Just the changes that did not get implemented.
And the
The growth ordinance.
yeah, the growth and
Yeah.
the planning board ordinance.
Yeah, so
Edits in them.
Yeah, so it's things that, so I guess I have an email from the current chair with that information, and then we'll bring it to you guys, and then you make the official recommendation, to bring it onto a warrant, so.
right, but it's some additional, so it's the original ones that didn't get sort of bureaucratic reasons didn't go through that I think they were warrant, or they were prepared to be warrant articles almost, but then the new things that you've added that you had in the memo is also part of it.
Yep.
Okay,
2 of the 3 already were on a warrant and got voted in, but never got recorded. 1 of the 3 never made it to the warrant
that's what it
of
is.
the 3 early.
And even though they made it to town meeting, there was never a proper hearing, and the proper steps kind of prior to that got missed. So we're just redoing it just to make sure that it's.
Right, the growth ordinance and the planning board ordinances are new to the community. Those have
Those
not
changes
been
are new,
discussed
correct.
in a public hearing yet.
Right.
That's all.
Correct, and we're
I'm-
gonna do a public hearing with all of those in the same day instead of doing 4 different public
Yeah,
hearings.
no, that's right.
I also have street parking on there. If you guys wanted to discuss that, either the policy or ordinance or both.
On where? On the public hearing?
No, on future agenda.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. Yes, Bob.
I'd like, hopefully on the next meeting, future agenda, to talk about an ad hoc committee, a short-term committee to figure out and propose a good way to get the road work done. And maybe it's all 5 of us, but maybe there's a road commission as opposed to a road commissioner. So I'd like to propose in this discussion item at our next meeting, some small group work on that with the end proposal being due probably before town meeting, maybe even before we finalize the warrant.
I'd like that charge to the road committee.
The road
Be changed.
plan committee is different than the road commission. They're 2 different things.
But if we have the road committee report for any changes or repairs or any suggestions to the road commissioner, which is us. I guess I don't understand exactly the position that you're mentioning, so But,
The road plan committee doesn't seem to be operating anymore.
mhm,
So, and now this board's taking over the position of road commissioner. I'm proposing that we engage 3 people to talk about how to pull those facts together and move forward in the best way possible.
okay,
I'm proposing that we discuss that at a future meeting.
yes, Mark.
Very quickly, with respect to the road planning committee, I think you're absolutely right, Bob. The road planning committee charge, as I understand it, has been to survey the paved roads, which are almost paved.
That's right.
So I think if we're going to utilize the road plan committee in a different way than it's been utilized, I think we need to revisit that committee, and most importantly, the expectation of the charge of that committee and whether or not they would be involved in what you're describing.
Would you be able to write up a brief description on your plan on them and who would be part of that board? Or who would be eligible to be part of that board? Or ad hoc committee, I mean, sorry,
Sure.
just so that way we're all on the same page when we discuss it. All right. Is that something you want on the next agenda? Or,
I think that'd be good. I think it's a pretty timely thing. We've got a lot of road issues to deal with. So, yeah.
okay. All right, anything else?
The foul consent,
Oh, yes.
I'm not sure, depending on the attorney's time, if that will be ready
Yeah.
for next meeting or not.
Well, these are just for future agendas, so it doesn't necessarily have to be for the next agenda. So some of these might not be ready or anything. I think the update on the CMP thing, once you get that, probably doing the TA report,
Yeah, I can put that
I
on.
think
the
that would
agenda
be
for- yep.
not a,
Whole agreement, yeah.
so. Anything else? Check
So our meeting's the 19th,
Next one, yeah.
Wednesday.
yeah,
I'm sorry for saying that here.
okay,
My son has a senior project presentation.
I'll go with
College,
that.
and I'm not missing it. Yeah,
just,
you would.
just tell them to postpone it.
By the way,
All right, we do have a meeting next week with the school committee, budget meeting, on the 11th, Tuesday. Carol,
And I don't know how it works. Do we get the budget ahead of time or just at that meeting?
So the school board met on Tuesday. We're meeting tonight. I have a training in Augusta tomorrow, so my plan is that my Friday will be dedicated to updating any potential changes from this board's budget, and then Ann is supposed to send me hers, and so I was gonna compile everything into the budget and then send that to you. I also had reached out to the school board chair and the superintendent, and Jeff provided me a list of kind of possible discussions of things that he would like to. And so I was gonna send that just so that way you had an idea of what to expect. But yeah, I hope the plan is to have that to you guys by the end of the day on Friday, so you have time to look at it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And I'm open to how that meeting goes. I didn't mean to sound like I was gonna keep it very rigid, but I think last year we got a little astray, and this year we probably should be a little more efficient with it.
and so to move on, if you guys have anything else you want to put on the agenda, something that comes up, please give me a brief description of what you'd like to put on. Like Carol, you've done and stuff, that was good. If we can get it before, I believe Thursday, before the meeting, that'd be great. So that way, if I have any questions, Rika has any questions and everything, and we can put on the agenda.
Yeah, we usually have by Thursday, the agenda is done, and then we work
Yeah,
Friday usually to gather up all the materials, so.
all right, moving on. to the budget workshop, report draft for the budget presented and capital expenditure. Mark, I will hand this off to you, and I do apologize for the length of tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna start with I'm gonna try to make this efficient for us. I'm gonna start with a very quick observation. Right now, where we stand, correct me if I'm wrong, Vika, I think we're just under $160,000 from where we were with the budget recommended last year total. And I believe that capital improvements are just about just under 140,000 less than last year. Is that accurate, in your opinion?
Yes, I
Right now.
think it is.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna start with a couple of simple suggestions. Fire department has requested an extra $1,000 for their ladder testing for Department 2200, which is on page 8 of your budget packet. And I guess my question / suggestion is, would that go under firefighting supply? What line item would make sense for an extra $1,000? Would it
30, 40, I would think, equipment maintenance.
Maintenance.
30,
That's-
40,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So instead of a recommended amount, 2024 initial of 14,000, that would go up to $15,000. Any questions or problems with that? Go ahead.
So the 1,000 you need is in the next fiscal year, or is it in this fiscal year?
Oh,
Okay.
So do you currently have it in this year?
No, equipment
no,
maintenance is maxed out.
I'm not, we haven't got a date on the guy actually coming up and doing the ladder. I don't know. Maybe it will be after July 1st.
Yeah. Okay. So if it isn't before July 1st, is it likely that you guys will be able to pull $1,000 out of the existing budget to pay for that?
We'll figure it out.
Okay. So is it okay for this next fiscal year, 2024, if we tuck an extra 1,000 into 30, 40 equipment maintenance?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for.
Okay. Yep. Is everybody, any more questions or comments about that?
No, I agree.
Item number 2 that I'm suggesting is actually not going to be on your capital budget sheet, which is in the very back of your packet. Page 38 of this document. It's not going to be on there. It's actually going to be on your Machias Savings Bank Reserve account sheet. I apologize. Coastal Waters is suggesting that floats and ramps have an added amount of $15,000. The basis for that recommendation is an estimate of a new 10-foot wide by 24 to 25-foot wide float to be purchased in the future. Currently, there's 27,820,
Thanks, Rafi.
whatever there is.
Ralph, hold on a minute, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question, Ralph is asking if we need him here for any questions. I
Oh,
was just gonna
sorry,
ask the board
Ralph.
if he needed anything.
Yeah, I
else.
apologize. I don't think we have any more questions for fire rescue, do we? For the chief?
Just if the chief's getting enough sleep these days.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about
We have a balance of $27,867.14. If they put this 14,000, they will have $41,000 roughly in there. My question to Coastal Waters are we anticipating buying a float this year or now or when? The answer was probably not yet, but we would like to have an evaluation done on the existing floats. And we weren't able to pull that off before they're probably going to go back into the water. So my recommendation is to take their recommendation and add 15,000 to the float reserve.
So that
Any,
total of 44,000, does that buy us one float, two floats? Do we know that?
15 per float at least,
Yeah,
15, 16.
so I talked directly to the owner of Custom Floats, and he knows the size of the floats. He told Justin Downey to put in 13,000, then he told him to put in 14,000, then he told me to put in
Well, that's my
15,000,
point.
so
If
I'm
they're
picking.
talking about buying one new float and we've got 28 in there already. And they're talking about buying one, maybe one a year as needed, depending on the survey. Why do we need to add more money than the 28 we already have in there?
And that's kind of the question that I asked. They're suggesting to build up the account and then develop a plan. I know that's a little backwards, but I don't think that adding 15,000 is going to affect us that much budgetarily. I think we're probably, like I said before, I think the floats are just about 20 years old. I can kind of remember when Cumberland and Proc Marine developed and improved the site down there. So I took a peek underneath one of the floats late today, just to see if I could see up in the framing, but I'm not a float builder, so it would be better to have somebody like a Custom Floats or a Sherman Rich or somebody like that.
Right, I understand all that. I'm just saying, if we're talking about maybe needing to buy one next year,
Yeah,
why do we need to add enough money so that we could probably do 3?
I don't have a good answer. It's not a solid plan in place.
Carol.
I mean,
sorry,
I
Mark.
support the concept of starting to add on the order of 15 a year to start building, building up the reserves. There's other things that might need to be repaired. I mean, I don't think it's gonna break the budget this year, and I think we should get in the habit of adding to the capital reserve. So I think that was the thinking, is this is the beginning of kind of an incremental plan to start replacing the floats.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize that I tried to help Justin and the coastal water develop a plan, but we just couldn't get it
Right.
to
And
go.
one more question? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Jen
I
had
have
her
one more
hand, I
question.
have a question too, so.
Go ahead.
Why do we have 28,000 in the Machias list, but it's not on page 38? I don't, there are 11 or 12 items that are on Machias that are not on page 38.
If there was stuff that was changed in that account within
The last
several
4
years, it will show up on this capital. If nothing has been added to that account within those years, it will not show up on this. That's how Trio works. If she added more years, like 2019, 20, so,
We need one list.
Yeah, that's my,
yeah.
we need one.
And so-
Some way, somehow, we need one.
Nika's done some work on the capital plan, so.
Yeah, that's true, okay.
Yeah, so we'll get together and harmonize them, and I was gonna say, I think we need to approve a new capital plan, and maybe not the next meeting, but before we go to town meeting.
Sure.
So you and I need to get together.
And I have been working, it's something I said earlier in the treasurer's report, and it's took a lot more update in the accounts and making sure the language was right, because it hasn't been done in the last 4 years, but I agree. And it's even having, like Chris went through the last 4 years and look at all the town meetings just to make sure. And we found that like one of these accounts that's showing on the Machias was actually voted to be replaced by, so it just, those little changes that it ended up just taking far longer, just really went down the rabbit hole. But the idea is, and that would have a list of where you currently stand and what the account is and what the description, so you really see them all.
And I'm wondering if the most efficient way to go about it at town meeting is to adopt the list wholesale. In other words, to kind of say, this is gonna be the capital improvement account list.
Versus to have the spreadsheet in the.
Right, well,
in the
it's
town.
instead of going through trying to figure out which ones we need to change and some are okay, why don't we just put in the whole thing with the description and say
I
the
think that'd be a
community
great
good with
idea.
that, because then it will be a lot cleaner.
Because it's one mistake of after town meeting an administrator or somebody not adjusting it, and, I mean, we had 4 or 5 of them that we found in the last 4 years.
I agree, and thank you. Jen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I am, in agreement with, the 15,000, but is it feasible to think that if we, down the road are able to, do major improvements to the stone pier, that floats and ramps and those kind of things will be included in that, project per se?
I think it is, Jen, and especially if they are possibly much larger floats, which are not gonna be anything about like what we're talking about tonight. We're only talking about 10 by 24 or 5 feet long wooden float. If we go after a project and some federal or state money for Stone Wharf and or Cousins Island Landing, they're likely to be much bigger floats, which would be probably included in that project recommendation plan. So, yeah. Go ahead.
The other part is to add to that is, if we're in the process of doing something with the stone pier and there's this money and the floats are gonna be replaced, it's just a town meeting vote to, take the money from floats and ramps and put it into the stone pier. So,
Thank you, Sarah.
So are we okay with this recommendation so far?
Quick question, Mark.
So go ahead.
So during the meeting with Coastal Waters, thank you for attending those. Just wondering if there was a discussion of outsourcing maintenance on those ramps, floats and ramps.
Only a quick conversation, in my opinion, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, we may be starting to wonder if we need to visit something like that, but nothing solid yet.
Because we're asking Public Works, which are not, they're knowledgeable on it. I'm not saying that they've been doing a good job maintaining them to the best of their abilities, but that's not their,
What day?
yeah, thank you.
And I think we're gonna ask Custom Flows to come in and kind of understanding our future needs, when of course some of them are not totally clear what they're gonna be. Sort of design a management plan almost. And it might be that Coastal Waters does an inspection every year and has a sheet of repairs that need to be made. And, I think we need a system, and then we can decide who makes the repairs. But part of the problem now is that it doesn't really get communicated properly on what needs to happen, for specific repairs. I think we're gonna spend a little money with Custom Floats to get us organized, basically.
We okay with that?
Yes,
So
thank you.
that's added 15, that's added $15,000 more to your capital number. So that would mean, as of right now, we are about 124 or 5,000 less than last year, I believe, right?
Mhm.
On capital.
Yeah.
That makes sense? I have a question about harbor master wages in the department. Are we gonna take that up tonight? I wasn't clear where we
Are we
left
finished
that.
with capital?
I wasn't clear where we left that conversation.
Right.
All right.
is capital discussion done for the night?
Do you have other items in capital?
I don't have anything other than, the dredging is still
Okay,
questionable, so.
And do we have enough with the, in the Public Works equipment
Yes, so
to,
the Public Works equipment is gonna bring us to, the current is at 70,000, almost at 71,000, and it is being recommended to add an additional 25.
Okay.
And so that's gonna bring us in a position of having that $86,000 tractor with the equipment and cover the cost of barging, and then have some cushion space And then depending on how we stand with the budget, maybe a little bit might be pulled out of that, but then we'll see where the budget ends at the end of the year for maybe another piece for the tractor. So, but yeah, that line is good.
Thank you.
Can I go back to dredging for a second, Vika? So are we authorized for, did the town meeting authorize us for an amount to bond?
Yes, it was $250,000. So that money is towards the debt that we still have to finish. We have not paid the second part of the dredging,
Yeah,
so.
I got confused with that one.
And it got even more confusing when he abruptly called me the other day. He's a great guy, but he's definitely a lot harder to understand than Mark Cable was.
Okay.
And, which is why I recommended having a meeting with, a couple other selectmen or, somebody
Right.
else.
So, right,
because-
so we're authorized for 250,000, you said. Right now in the dredging amount on Machias savings, we have just under 50,000. We have $49,055. We're recommending so far 2024 on your capital sheet, page 38, 20,000. Are you recommending that we consider any more in this tonight? Or don't you know?
I think that it would be wise to put more money in there just because of the conversation that I had. As far as what number, I really don't have a good number. I think that's really gonna come off of the meeting with him next week.
So don't do it tonight. Wait till after that conversation.
I mean, otherwise I'm just gonna be giving you a number for the sake of giving you a number.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just being honest. You could put 50 grand, you could put 100 grand, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
So is this meeting about bids that he's received for the next phase? Is that what it's about?
no bids have been received yet. They just went out for soliciting. That just became live this week. He called me at the end of last week. Unexpectedly, it wasn't a planned call, and then tried explaining some things to me, and it was really difficult to follow him. And so I recommended we schedule this meeting, and then I would let the board know and see who wants to, one or two selectmen participate to really get a better grasp. He was all over the place, and the numbers that we had worked out from Mark Cable had given us to where they're standing now, I had a lot of questions and he was struggling to answer them.
Okay. So
But
we,
I don't have anything.
So we might have to adjust that number.
That's my suspicion. I didn't feel confident from that conversation that it wasn't gonna cost us more than what, we already have set aside, but I don't have a number.
so we only have the meeting with the school and then the final draft. So you're talking about the final draft conversation, maybe involving in preparation of adding to this item only.
Correct.
Unless we have a special quick meeting to do this.
Unless we have a special quick meeting, so are you guys clear on that? And I mean, I don't know what choice we have. This dredging thing has just been a moving target for, go ahead.
But there's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. Once we get past this, then we get our dredging done. So hopefully, I do have a capital item I want to bring up. We don't know yet if or what we'll do at Venice for the barge ramp. And we currently have in the Machias account, in the amount, in the item called barge ramps, we have 10,000.
Mhm.
Would it be prudent to add more, knowing that we might do something for the barge ramp, traffic flow, safety aspect of Venice? There's engineering that would have to be done, and then there's execution.
Refresh my memory, where did we get, the money came out of course, the access for the survey, right?
For the survey, yes.
Can I ask a question on top of that? So, is it possible, because from what you guys have brought back to us about the Indian point retaining
Oh.
wall.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that there will be any huge amount of money spent there, just because of what, is it possible that we could then take money out of that account and move it to, for instance, Barton Ranch?
It would have to be a town vote question.
Sure.
But
But I would
that,
propose that the most we're gonna be doing at this point, well, Bo, you haven't, have you heard back from them?
I have not.
Yeah.
No.
I think the most, at this point, the best guess is the most we'll be doing there is work to improve the parking and traffic safety issues at the top of the road.
I
So
had,
taking that account from,
yeah,
what's in there now, 60's in there, taking it down to 10, and then that creates 50 on top of the 124 that were already to the good in capital.
yeah, I agree with you on the possibilities for access to the hook. I had a quick conversation with Phyllis Bruner and Ted Ballard. About a week ago, they swung into my job for 15 minutes and asked me if I'd had any thoughts of the parking, and I said, well, I'm not involved in the discussions with you, but my opinion would be that it could probably easily be solved with a solid discussion between a subgroup, which is you two guys, and the affected landowner. But I said, you know, the town would probably likely then enter in some sort of an agreement or easement, and then improve the area and then help manage it. So I agree with you. I think it's gonna be less money, and so if we have an intention of asking the town meeting voters to consider moving money, we just have to make a warrant article, just like Vika said, to ask them and have some rationale of why we're asking that. A little description. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess I'd be a little concerned about only leaving 10 in there, because that's not gonna go very far. If we really have to do some kind of parking improvements, and so I think, and also we don't necessarily, we may not have a plan by town meeting, so it seems like moving less. I don't know if you have a sense of how much we might need for barge ramps, but I think in a way, it's sort of, again, putting the cart before the horse a little bit, and
I agree.
we should either wait till we have a specific proposal that the town can react to. It just seems politically more logical.
We may not be ready to
Yeah.
to develop that warrant article with the lack of a plan and information, but
So I'm not quite understanding. Is there one warrant article that covers the new capital budget? Or if you
Yes.
want to if you want to reduce what's in point retaining wall, or you want to reduce what's in public works equipment, does that require a separate warrant, or is it part of the overall warrant?
So there is one warrant article that usually has a picture of the graph and it lists the capital. So it'll say, you know, dredging 90, 10, 20,000. And so those all get voted in individually like that with the full sum number. And then if there is money to vote things from a different account, then there would be kind of a separate warrant article saying to move money out of capital reserve account 9072.
Okay. Thanks.
go ahead.
Can I ask you a good question? Because, do you have the definitions of these with you by chance?
To the best of my abilities, yes.
Easements and drainage.
Hold on.
I've got it. It's purchase of rights to permit drainage and maintenance access of drainage systems onto and or across private property.
What I'm getting to is if we could move all of that money off Indian Island, Indian Point, 91, 95 to another line item. I know it'd be kind of pushing it, moving it to coastal access fund. it's for us to access our parking. So this,
Yeah, I don't think we should move any money until we have a plan. I mean, I think the community sent us off to kind of figure it out. And we know what we're not gonna do, but we don't know what we're gonna do. And I would just wait, it's a year at the most. And it seems premature to start moving money around, and I think people might feel disenfranchised potentially without understanding what it is we're trying to do. That's my.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think that the access to the Indian Point, I think we're getting closer to some solid discussions. And I think we in the Indian Island Corporation have come to a conclusion of what might be realistic and workable. I think if we can get that done, then if we decide that that account is no longer needed on a bigger scale other than light maintenance of the area, which may be able to be taken care of in operations, then we decide whether we need to look at different accounts and ask the voters for consideration of movement. Make sense?
But I still think it's important to put more money into barge ramps then, or coastal access. I mean, not coastal access. No, that was right. Into for Bennett's for barge ramps.
Well, then maybe we should just do that, right? We got a number in mind?
No,
to increase barge ramps.
Yeah, barge ramps was developed, mostly for the existing one.
Right.
That's no more.
But if
Yeah,
Doesn't-
it's
doesn't mean that's what-
engineering, capital maintenance and construction and reconstruction of barge ramps.
So it could be that.
Well, we could ask if Bob has a suggestion. I had a number in mind.
Do you have a number, Jen? No?
I would think 25, 30 just for engineering and engineering costs. You're looking 25, 30. I'm just guessing, not
I don't
quite
know,
sure.
I was thinking of those concrete.
So Bob, we're back to your original suggestion, I believe, of possibly increasing barge ramp number. Right now, there's 10,000 bucks in there roughly.
but they don't want to touch the Indian Point retaining wall.
I agree with that. Until we have a.
Until we have a plan.
So do you guys have a suggestion of an increase in that
20.
20,000 more? What do you think, Jen?
10.
Okay,
Carol?
I'm good with that. So that's a total, how much would that
Doesn't matter.
total be?
I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm fine with
I'm
it.
suggesting adding 20,000.
How
Yep.
much in there? Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
20?
add 20 to barge ramps for now, please. Thank you. Any more capital items from anyone?
No.
Let's go to departmental. What remains, are we dealing with anything with Harbor Master as far as numbers tonight?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
So I've looked at online, several different staffing companies have averages and ranges for what does a harbor master make in the state of Maine. And it's basically between $23 and $30 an hour. It doesn't talk about the details, doesn't talk about whether that's part-time or full-time or whatever. The number of hours that was in the version of the two job descriptions that I had read 2 days ago, which Justin watching, he just explained why he dropped it out. He thought that was what he was supposed to do.
Oh, yeah, because he took them out.
Yeah, he took it out, but he wasn't, they agreed with him, he just thought he was supposed to take him out of there. So what was in there was 596 for harbor master, 596 hours a year for harbor master, and 195 hours per year for shellfish warden.
So could we make that 600 and 200?
We certainly could, yes. And that was based on so many hours of work on the shorefront or on the docks at piers in the summertime, and then a different amount in the winter. And it was based on so many hours per week, year round, on looking at these aquaculture applications and making sure coastal waters is aware of them and all that kind of. But that was the numbers that were in there that those guys looked at, those people on coastal waters looked at and talked about. So if you pick a way, I've got it in a spreadsheet, so I can just plug in a rate. So I'm gonna change it from 596 to 600, or 195 to 200. If you made that 30 for each of those, which is at the high end. And if you went with 30, it would be 18,000 for harbor master, 6,000 for shellfish warden. If you went with 25, which is toward the low end, that would be 15,000 for harbor master and 5,000 for shellfish warden.
Do you have a recommendation, Bob?
I would go with 25 an hour, 15,000 for harbor master. I would, no, there's one other point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Typically, when you post a job, you say, the pay will be based on experience qualifications. And you might not want to lock yourself in to the lowest pay rate in your budget. You might want to budget for the high end, but make the salary arrangements with the employee who gets hired based on their qualifications and experience. So now I'll shut up.
Okay.
Can I make just a quick comment? So last year, when we were looking to hire a bookkeeper, we agreed what would be the maximum that you would pay, and that's what we budgeted for. And then, so I think you're right. I think that you should, and when it goes to advertising for the job or offering, it would be, you know, between 23 and 30. Salary based on, you know, experience and qualifications. But if you're thinking of 30 being the highest, then I think it would be wise to budget at $30 an hour.
That's what I was saying.
Do you have a recommendation, Bob?
Yes, 18,000 for harbor master and 6,000 for shellfish.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carol.
No, I would agree with
Oh.
that, and I just wanted to say, based on my most recent discussion with DMR, we, you know, essentially expand the scope to help with investing, so I would go definitely with that.
Jen or Bo, do you have questions or comments?
Can I just add that we're pretty much right back when we started, almost, you know.
This doesn't include healthcare, correct?
So it
That's
depends on the hours. What do you, if it's gonna be a harbor master position and a separate shellfish position, and it's two different people, then no. If it's one person and their average per week, their average per week is over, you know, certain hours, then we're required. So it depends, you know, depends on that.
What is that number?
Which number?
The number at which, the average number of hours per week at which benefits are required.
23 hours.
Even if it's a seasonal job?
If so, with the current harbor master position, what we do is we average based on what the requirements, that's why we needed those specifics each month, what is, and so we average that. And it's based on the average that the health insurance is prorated.
This average is 16 hours a week between the two. According to this.
Did you say, I'm sorry, did you say 23 hours?
In
Is that
average.
our current policy? And so I think I need to be cautious, but I think the current situation that we have, the employment situation, the reason that benefits are available is the amount of positions that are being performed.
Harbor master shellfish, that's
Parking, right?
I'm trying to be,
the harbor master shellfish is the benefit, is what the position is based on.
right, but I'm saying currently in our operation,
Yes,
there's also parking enforcement being,
that's unrelated to the benefits of.
So the current situation is the harbor master shellfish position qualifies for that.
Correct.
The way we're currently.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Which means.
So the answer to your question is, no, it does not include it.
So, can I ask a question about this? So about that 16 hours a week, is that the seasonal hours? Or is that a year round, like divided by 52 type deal?
That proposal had 600 for harbor master, 200 for shellfish warden, that is 800. 800 divided by 50 weeks, which is 52 weeks in a year minus 2 vacation, equals 16 per week.
But yet, I'm not trying to, your math's right, but if we're making a harbor master position a seasonal job, which will increase his hours during the summer months.
What Vika said, so it's the average in the year, it's not what happens in the summer versus what happens, it's the average.
Just trying to get clarification.
Is that correct, Vika?
Go ahead.
It is correct. However, if it is a position that doesn't qualify for benefits, if they're working that average, they're not gonna qualify to accumulate sick time or vacation time, so they wouldn't get that 2 weeks of vacation.
And it's, I think it's intended to be an annual position, but less hours during the winter months. But it's, it's all year round. The way I think you had it.
And that's how the current position is.
And I think even the meat configuration you thought was.
No, I don't disagree with the math. I just wanted a clarification on it.
So I'm a little confused. Does the current situation qualify for benefit?
Yes, because the current harbor master shellfish position is requiring more hours than what you are proposing, therefore it qualifies for positions.
Oh, I
This
see.
proposal is making it so the average is, what did you say, 16 hours?
Yeah.
Versus 23. Currently,
Yes.
it is average is 23 hours.
And is that because the pay rate was increased in this
That
proposal?
is I don't know what the current pay rate is. That's the only
It would-
possibility.
yeah, I-
I'm just trying to figure out where we're at.
That's it.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Go ahead.
And I'll just comment that, based on all the other ones that I looked at, this is on the way high side as far as hours for this position.
Per hour or just hours in general?
Hours and.
Total hours, yeah.
I have to say, I was surprised with the amount of support from coastal water and the shellfish committee for these positions. Were you?
I don't know if I was surprised, but it was clear that they support that level of effort for these positions and feel, particularly one comment was that it needs to be a year-round position to pay attention to aquaculture leases. And I think that it has as many, many aspects to the job. So I'm listening to coastal waters and they feel it needs that level of effort.
So where does that leave us with the number? I'm sorry,
24,000.
24,000 even?
Well, I think we were contemplating having these positions, didn't we unravel them from one position to two? So it's basically 18,000 for the harbor master, 6,000 for shellfish.
Yes.
As two separate positions instead of one as it's shown.
And is the shellfish one gonna be a stipend?
No, it would be,
It would be an hourly?
Yeah,
I can't
it's-
remember what
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
So they both would be paid as a part-time employee
Yes.
position?
I think that's the plan.
Okay. I'm good with it. Any more discussion on this one?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
So as far as, I'm just looking at it from the budgetary bookkeeping perspective.
Yeah.
The currently where things stand, I think that if this is adopted and this is the recommendation being made, then we're very well going to be advertising for a new position. that is my suspicion, and I think that right now it is difficult to find employees. And I think that if you're gonna be offering a position where it's gonna, one of the benefits of people looking for jobs right now is all the perks and the benefits that come with it, including benefits. And so in this position, there isn't gonna be any of that. And so my concern is that we might fall into a position where we might have a hard time filling this position, especially into the summer months. And then that could, set us back from trying to make the right steps. So I know you're all aware of it, but that's kind of where I'm concerned about. Could these adjustments for the right reason potentially cause some major difficulties come into the summer season where it's very busy, where we might not have a harbor master?
And if I may, currently, what would the estimated cost of the health insurance coverage that we're providing be to the taxpayers? What would it be?
So for the current position, it is, it's $10,534.
Per year?
So when it's a part-time position, does the individual pay 50%? So in that
So
case.
it's prorated. So if you're 40 hours a week, then it's 80% gets covered for family, 20% gets paid. If it's at one person, then it's 90.
But it has to be over 23.
If it's over
even
23
access.
hours, if it's, and then it gets, prorated basis. So some people pay a little bit more.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah,
there's the elephant in the room we're missing here. So these calculations were based on a number of hours that were driven from the meetings we had with coastal waters and shellfish.
yep,
Blown against an hourly rate that came off the internet.
yep.
And we said, let's go with the high number so that when we go out to hire, we can get the best person, but we can always pay less than that depending on qualifications and experience. I think the number of hours that we came up with is dramatically less than the number of hours that we're paying for today.
No,
I don't
Do you know
know.
the total number of hours that our current position currently gets paid for on an annual basis?
Well, the number is gonna,
It's an average of 23.
there's harbor master / shellfish, it's the same
I
dollars.
understand.
So this is.
How many hours per year does that position currently work? Is my question.
That,
If he's averaging over 23, it's 1150.
so
A year.
the
Yeah,
current
I'm asking.
position has to follow. The hours that is in the current job description, and
Yeah.
that's what has to be the average. I don't know what number of hours it's been worked. I would have to pull up a report from payroll, but it is followed off of, I don't know where it is.
I think the current pay rate is position $20 an hour. I could be mistaken.
The current pay rate for this position is, oh, I changed it because of 2218.
So I'm getting at.
yeah. Is it benefit?
So we're going through trouble of recruiting. And we're gonna pay more per hour, and whoever we get is not gonna have benefits. If we find anybody.
Yeah,
I don't know what I can talk about now versus executive session.
no, I understand. Go ahead, Carol.
And philosophically, I understand it's a cost, but providing positions
Yes.
with benefits is a laudable thing for the town to do. And so I don't personally have the objective to strip the position of the benefits to, I think it should potentially be the reverse. So I guess I'm with Bob. I'm kind of thinking, what is the overall benefit here? And so that's my concern, and I'm listening to what Vicky says, and I think it's true that we could be left empty-handed here.
So can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
For 2023 budget was 26.
So this is 24, right? This is 24 right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry you missed that conversation.
you guys get it all figured out?
No.
What we figured out is that we're gonna end up paying close to the same amount of money for less hours and not provide benefits. Which doesn't seem like a good thing to do, given the difficulties of hiring these days and all that. So we're trying to figure out what to do.
So realistically, we're not paying the same amount because we're not paying benefits, so that's a reduction.
You're right, there's a reduction in benefits.
That's right.
Are the budgets in that line? The insurance, I mean,
No,
in
they're
that line? The
Under
benefits
wages?
aren't- Yeah, benefits aren't that, it's a different
No,
call.
this is just the wages.
Okay.
The problem is because we think that this position needs a ton, this many hours, even though it's less hours. And you look at all these other communities that get by without a position that requires a ton of time. That's where it all started from, I
Yep.
think.
Understood.
And
So Bob, currently is budgeted for 26, he's making roughly around 23 an hour. So that's roughly 1,130 hours. So just, I'm sorry, just the hours. They're
I
wondering.
understand.
So,
I think we can't talk about that. but-
so,
Well, what you could talk about is the total wage line item.
Yeah.
And so the total wage line item that I had initially recommended was from a previous year of being to what it is to the 5% COLA increase, it would bring it up. The initial recommendation was $27,842.
Understood. So I'll try to boil it down. We tried to reduce the job to something more appropriate, given our size of town. And then we worked with Coastal Waters and Shellfish and came back with their recommendation that we not do that. And then we built a schedule based on the specific tasks that they were looking for. And that's how we got to those hours of 600 and 200. That's how we got there. So we tried to say what Jen was just saying.
Yeah,
As a group, we were kind of headed that direction, and we made a change down to 6,000. But after working with Coastal Waters and Shellfish, their strong recommendation was that we not cut back in that fashion. And they got specific about what this position needs to do and what this position needs to do. And that's how we got to where we are, which is at the high end. If we follow that practice of
Yeah.
budgeting for the high end, then we get to 24,000 with no benefits, but we're gonna wind up getting fewer hours per year worked. And we're taking the position of taking benefits away when, from a stewardship standpoint, maybe that's not the right.
so I've been thinking about this position in this town for a number of years, and I've been to the Coastal Waters and Shellfish meetings, and I came here tonight with the intention of recommending 12,000 for harbor master position, 6,000 for Shellfish commission, which is Shellfish position, which is $18,000. If you take rough math, 800 hours and you multiply it times $23, it's $18,400. Realizing that doesn't include any possible qualifications for benefit. I'm not sure that it would. I'm not sure that it wouldn't. But that's what I was prepared to recommend. I think I mentioned that night at the rec center, those numbers. The reason I'm picked those numbers, it sounded like there was strong support from really most of every member from both committees to keep the harbor. They definitely recognize that shellfish needs of management has dropped off significantly. So I don't know what that would do for conversation pieces for tonight. Probably we would not be able to calculate qualification or not based on what I just said.
No, for insurance benefits, you mean?
Yeah,
No.
How many hours was it, Mark?
800.
Same as what we have.
No, the current hours are what, yeah, 800, exactly. Just the number was a little higher. So,
So we don't know what that number is if we have to start hiring.
So you're saying that 800 hours would not average out, I'm sorry,
800 hours averages out to
16,
16 per week.
yeah, so that would not qualify.
correct. So the
It must be
current,
1,100 hours right now then.
But if your $24,000 divided by 800 hours is $30 an hour. Which is,
You know, I'm not recommending 24,000, I was recommending 18.
oh, 18 total, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think you guys are recommending 24.
So you're recommending the same amount of hours at a different pay rate? Is that what I'm hearing?
I wasn't, because it's not 800 hours currently, you're saying it's more
Well,
position.
it's more, but
Yes.
Bob's proposal is 800 hours at a certain pay rate. You're recommending 800 hours at a lower pay rate. That's how I compare those two proposals. Is that accurate? We're on
I'm
it.
just saying that's what I came prepared. I'm kind of confused about where we're at, so I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
One way or another, so let's figure out how to wrap it up.
Well, I'm not confident that the current position is at a pay rate, sort of a moderate, mid-range pay rate, but it has benefits. And personally, I don't know how he feels, but I'm not comfortable that we're gonna be able to find somebody at that rate without benefits. That's a big difference. And so that's all I'm concerned about.
that's the point that I was trying to make, is that it's, in today's day and age, unfortunately, having those perks helps retain an employee and hire an employee. So you can make these changes and not provide that, and that's fine. We just very well might have a significantly harder time finding an employee. I mean, we found a bookkeeper in 6 months, and that provides all the perks. It's a really difficult time to find it. People are working to try to be creative and throw all these perks to retain employees. And that's my concern, is we might not have somebody.
Okay,
And
where do we want to leave it for tonight, folks? Go ahead, Jen.
And I think that, so many other communities, and sorry to keep harping on other communities, but that's where I looked and did a whole bunch of research for. They're not looking at it to give somebody a full-time employment position. This is like, all these guys, they were lobstermen, they were, they had other positions or other jobs in the town, and they did it as a stipend position, and it gave them, that little extra. And I think that's the big difference. Are you trying to make this, is this worthy of a full-time position job? Then yeah, then you stick back with a salary that has benefits. If it's not necessary to have such, a beefy job description, employment, whatever, if it's not needed, then somebody can pick it up as, another job added to what, they already do, whether they're not necessarily lobstering, but aquaculture, any of those kind of things.
Go ahead, Carol.
I know Jen and I may agree to disagree on this, but I guess where I'm at is the stone pier is a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a cluster, and I think presence down there. It's not like other locations in that we have ferries, barges, cars, a pretty congested area. And I do feel like the harbor master presence there is beneficial to the community. So I guess I think we landed on what we think the level of effort is, and I'm not trying to make it a full-time position. I don't think it needs to be, but I'm just not sure we're gonna end up in a better place as a community by, you know, reducing the salary, as we just said, and then maybe having no one in the position. So it isn't about trying to offer benefits as much as trying to, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot trying to save some money there.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. I hate to say this, and I know this isn't how you approach things generally, but there's a lot of revenue that comes in and likely to increase with possible mooring fee increases, which I've always thought were way too low for this town if you're gonna pay mooring fee, but whatever. So I think there's little risk, quite frankly, financially here to the taxpayer with all the revenue that comes in. Right now, there's $23,000 coming in. And I think that's easily going to creep up close to 28 or 30. So I think there's little risk, and I'm kind of with Carol.
So I'd be inclined to keep it.
Go ahead, Jim.
What about, we're talking with Long Island, when was that? What if we wait and we can give a little chat with them and see where they're at? Because that might change a lot of things.
When did
I think it was the 20th.
20th?
That's in my mind.
the meeting with Long Island is, yes, it is on the 20th at 4 p.m.
I do understand the hesitancy and lack of importance put on these type of positions. Like I sat on 1 or 2 hiring committees with Cumberland before we became our own town, trying to help hire a harbor master. It was nothing short of a fiasco. It just didn't go well. The candidates dropped out. They didn't finish the police training, which was required for that position in that town at that time. And both times, Tommy Burgess ended up having to take it, and he didn't want it. So I don't think it's uncommon to have problems in this area. I think Jen's right. I think small towns don't spend much time and effort on it. And I think we're sort of trying to still figure out what we do want to do with it. Stone Wharf is the big culprit for enforcement. Do we handle it well? At times, maybe we do. At times, maybe we don't. Maybe we need to look at Stone Wharf management and Chandler's Cove Wharf management and management of our floats to be hopefully over at Cousins Island with a different type of position, which also includes parking. I don't know. Go ahead. Anybody say anything?
So I said in the other meetings, you know, we're looking to reduce this position. But yearly, every year we get complaints. And maybe part of these complaints are the current position does not have enforcement capabilities or, you know, he's not deputized like in some communities that are around here, or he doesn't have the authority, I guess, to give, you know, no backing. So I don't know if, you know, I don't know if we need to hire somebody that would have either the backing of the police department. So that way, or
We
something,
don't.
I don't know how that would, well, I know we don't have one, but either from, I don't know which direction to go with that and how to do that, but
It would be more expensive. That
it would be more,
significant.
but
Go ahead. I'd like to decide sometime quickly. Go ahead, Carol.
I think, Jen, I think we could talk to Long Island, and I'd be inclined to leave it flat funded for 2024. I think we can talk to Long Island if there's a potential to work together to share a position, then we can revisit it. But I feel like Bob, you know, highlighted the fact that we really weren't kind of making a big improvement in the finances for all of this. It's sort of getting less for.
So I'm sorry to say, I don't remember where this wage line was.
Well,
Was it
it's now
27,000?
So, yeah, that's the clarification. Are you looking at keeping it the flat line as to what is recommended or what the very initial recommendation was?
I think you're talking initial. Are you?
I don't know.
Are you saying keep it at the 2023 number or keep it at Mika's recommended 5%
I'm
over that?
open to suggestions, folks. I'm just saying, you know. And I guess I wouldn't do it. I guess I would be separating those positions out. I would agree with the coastal waters approach to it and take out those shellfish position. I think, Bob, you were at 22. What were you at? 24? For the two positions combined? at the
Yes,
high end?
24.
So it maybe would go to 6,000. I don't know. I'm too tired. I'm sorry.
My thoughts are, we bring it back to 27,000. And then step back and revisit with Long Island. And then possibly come back next year with a better plan at budget time. Because right now, we're all trying to scramble and make a decision.
I understand.
I
I know I'm not helping much, but I'm tired and I'm trying to keep things.
Yeah, no, I
moving.
get it. I'm not functioning.
Go right ahead, Pat.
So I have a question about the insurance. Is it Maine municipal?
Yes.
So it's been a while since I've been in the insurance business, 2012, but Maine municipal has always been the most expensive and not the richest package. So it's something to consider that you could potentially have better benefits, not going through Maine municipal. And I listened to those prices and the cost of 10,500, and that's prorated. That's
No, that's the cost for that employee. The proration is how much the town employee pays.
yeah, I got it. That's quite a high cost, even today. It's quite a high cost, and you could have a richer package for less money with little research. So it's I've been trying to follow what is exactly happening with this line item, and I don't think I've grokked exactly what's happening with the line item, what's the intention with it. But just from an overall perspective, I want to second, I think Carol said this, that providing, and Vika did as well, providing benefits that somebody can't get on their own. So some of the group benefits, you can't buy those benefits. Only a group can get them. So providing those benefits makes a good deal of sense for a relatively small investment in the relationship with employees.
So I won't waste much time, but do you, or do we think it's common for municipalities or small towns to shop around periodically for health insurance like certain entities do?
I know of some towns that don't go through Maine municipal because they found better packages at a lower rate. And a lot of Maine municipal's rating is based on the health experience from prior years. So if you get somebody with HIV, you get somebody with a rare form of cancer, you get somebody with, you get 3 members of a group of 100 who all have bypass surgery.
Yeah.
Respectfully, I think it's a really good conversation to pursue.
Yeah.
But
So where are we at tonight, folks? I think there might be 3 of us at least. I'm not sure where Bob and Jen, where you might stand. I'm not certain. I think the 3 of us might want to just leave the budget where it was last year for now and enter into talks with Long Island, see where those talks go for the upcoming budget year.
That's what I would do.
And I'm sorry that we wasted time on this tonight. I didn't mean to get bogged down.
No, not your fault.
Anything else to say on this for right now? Okay, could I ask a couple of questions, Baker, operational? Can we go to public services, page 12? And my question is a little bit similar to Bob's questions earlier on about the computer system. You're recommending a new, I think it's probably a laptop computer backed up with cloud, backup with ion networking, so on and so forth. A one-time fee of $2,500 and an annual fee of $602. And again, I know we've already tossed around that sounds high, which I still think sounds high. But my real question is for this department, what is the function of this request that they need this for? What are they doing with it?
So the goal is to have fire department, public works, and the town office to be all in line with the same antivirus protection and the same iCloud backup, to have the technology. We have Ion Networking is our tech company that we work with. Public Works currently has a laptop that is, it was purchased the first year that I was here, and it was like a $300 purchase on Staples. And the experience that they're having is it takes a really long time for it to get started up. It doesn't have Windows, it has nothing on it. And so our crew is spending wasted time sitting there waiting for all of this to load up, just to type up a public works report, which then doesn't have the capacity to email or anything. So then they have to print it out and then scan it to me. With this setup, everything would be backed up and everything would, it would have a town office email, and the tech company would set all that up. So then the public works crew could then sit, type it up, email it to me, and then be done. So
Respectfully, the question I think is, what exactly does Public Works do with the computer monthly? What do they do?
right, so they research things on it on a very irregular basis, but most of it would be, I would like the ability to email communication with them instead of text communication. I would like them to have the access to be able to email the monthly reports, and for them to be able to have the ability to have a location where they store public works equipment, photos, and you know, an ability to have a place where they store things on the computer instead of coming to me and saying, hey, can you look up this, or hey, can you find this? So really kind of bring our public works department in a little bit more current state of mind.
So I'm struggling with the justification of this for this department, I'm sorry to say. And the reason I say that is I'm not hearing myself enough justification for this department to have to need this purchase and then to pay a $600 annual fee.
The fee is for the email.
We're paying at least one cell phone. I don't know if are we paying 2 cell phones in this department or 1? 2. So we're paying $600 a year right now for 2 cell phones. And I know that I probably should have a laptop with my business, but I don't. And I run not a big construction business, but I do a lot of ordering, I do a lot of researching, and I do a lot of communication right on my iPhone. I can research almost anything on that iPhone that you can research on a computer. So I'm struggling with this, but if everybody else is fine with it, I'm fine. It's not a big battle. Go ahead.
I think it's a good expenditure to get everybody on the same platform, and it sounds like it might minimize some, make it more compatible with the main office, which to me is worthwhile.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
Everybody else okay with it? Go ahead.
I'm okay with it. And can I make a suggestion? just because I feel like we're all hitting a really big wall.
Yeah,
We have the school committee meeting next Tuesday.
yeah.
And that usually doesn't drone into the all hours of the night. It starts at 6. Why can't we finish up this continuing budget after we get done with the school? Just an idea.
We can, I'm pretty much
I'm
done.
done.
You guys want to wrap it up?
I'm okay with it. The goal was to try to get this budget as tidied up, so then the numbers could be as close as possible to, with both of them in it for a
I
discussion.
just,
If we're getting close.
I'm just gonna make one more point if I can, one more division. Next page.
Yeah.
Sorry, not next page, page 14, solid waste. I'm also struggling with the recommendation to add a third part-time seasonal employee for the transfer station. I'm just wondering if that's even needed. I'm wondering if we're utilizing the part-time fill-in position adequately that we currently have to help the attendant that's up there all the time, Gail. And I'm not sure that we need another position in this town, and I'm not convinced that we actually need that.
And
Another
that's,
part-time?
Isn't that the recommendation?
For the recommendation here was to have somebody be available on Fridays and, Saturdays and Sundays between Memorial Day and Labor Day, in addition to the current attendant.
So it's adding another very seasonal part-time position.
Yes,
With over the other part-time.
yes, because the other part-time position isn't, the hours are far more sporadic and there is no
So kind of like a
Saturday
substitute.
and Sunday.
And I think it was proposed at 4,000 or 5,000 to the, somewhere in there. But that's my thinking, that's me.
well, and I'm not even 100% clear. We have one full-time position, is it considered?
No, it's
No,
not
so we have
full-time
one
position.
part-time position, one sporadic part-time position, and now this is a third sort of scheduled part-time position.
Oh.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
And so how
So
many
this
hours
position- This
approximately?
position would add, a $3,300 expense.
Well, how many
It is,
hours is it adding?
19 and a half hours bi-weekly.
So 10 hours a week around.
19.5 hours bi-weekly for a certain number of months. Right.
April, Memorial Day
Yeah.
through Labor Day.
And I'm sorry, I know everybody wants to go home, just let me explain very quickly. It isn't even the money that I'm thinking about so much, even though it's $3,000-4,000. It's adding another position that we may take away from an individual who starts to do it.
So I have a question that's kind of related to that. Are we talking about having two people working at the transfer station at the same time during those months?
Yes. In sitting down with Gail at the very beginning, where you asked me to sit down about the departments, that was one of the recommendations, is to alleviate the stress and to ensure that, as busy as it gets between Memorial Day and Labor Day, it would be helpful to have somebody there for this, to have two people there Saturday and Sunday.
Go ahead.
And what's the other part-time position do?
Fill in on days that Gail is not there, or honestly, just kind of, very sporadically show up on days that is needed for the extra help, when Gail needs it,
And
but
how many hours generally is that?
we have it budgeted for 7 hours bi-weekly, so very, very part-time. But that position is not in a position to commit to those weekend days.
Go ahead, Bob.
I don't understand why we need two people at the transfer station. I may not understand all the duties, but from my time there, I don't understand why we need two people at one time, even during the summer. What is the specific work that's not getting done that needs to be done would be my question.
extremely busy and can't keep up. You know, I think there's the concern that not everyone is paying and some people are falling through and one person can't see everything that's going on as busy as it is on weekends. I mean, that was what I had in the report that I,
Hey, we can revisit this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we could revisit this next week. I'm sorry to drag this out.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry that we started so late, but that's Bo's fault.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I do apologize. The question I have for you, or the rest of the board, the 5% COLA. You had mentioned that we were gonna discuss that.
Yeah, we can do it next week. I'm at 3%.
Okay. So I would say that the rest of the board come up with a number next week and we can discuss it. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Sorry to drag this out. We all set for now? Wrap it up next week.
Are we going into executive session?
Yes.
On the agenda.
So. And,
I got it for 3 o'clock, that's my mistake.
Three.
Me too.
can I get a motion to go into executive session pursuant to one MRSA 40568 personnel to discuss an application for the road planning committee and the Board of Adjustment and Appeal and take